Are we on?
In about 2 seconds, you're live.
Good evening. It's September 30th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m., or actually 6:33. This is the first meeting for the year of the Finance and Facilities Committee. First item on the agenda is introductions. We'll start from my point of view. Fred, say a few words about yourself.
Sure, I'm Fred Siba. I'm one of the partners and Director of Engineering here for BBS Architects and Engineers.
I'm David Warner, member of the Board of Education, was the parent of a 5-year-old. She's now gone through graduate school and got a lucrative job, and life is good for her. Boyfriend, dog, everything's good. And hope that good things happen to the next generation of kids like they happened for mine. Lisa?
I'm Lisa Raymond. I am the newly appointed Assistant Superintendent for Business for Greenburgh, which I gratefully thank and accept the position, and I'm here to help.
Welcome, Lisa. Chris?
I'm Chris Vallon, a new board member, but a longtime participant in this committee and all its permutations. And I've come from a busy high school afternoon at the cross-country meet, soccer meet, and there was a volleyball game. So,
Wow.
Parent of 2.
Very good. Amy?
Hi, good evening. I'm Amy Ashley Moore, and I serve here as the district treasurer.
Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie McGee, and I'm a parent of a 7th grader.
Dave?
Hi, Dave Law, parent of a 1st grader and pre-K.
Steve?
I'm Steve Morton. I'm the vice president of the PTA Council. Have an 8th grader, an 11th grader, and glad to be here.
Ashley?
Ashley Pineda, board trustee and parent of 2 at RJ Bailey.
Laser?
Laser alert, network administrator.
Jim?
Jim Wadig with BBS Architects. I'm the project architect for Greenburgh Schools and helping out any way I can with getting your projects done and approved and built.
Very good. Walter?
Walter Simon, longtime resident of Greenburgh, kids, grandkids who was in the system. I have a daughter who's now a teacher in the system. My granddaughter was last year in the first graduation class of the baccalaureate degree at Woodlands, which I'm very proud of. She's doing well at NYU. I've been a member of the facilities committee for many years and wish to continue to contribute in any way I can.
Thank you. Michael?
Michael Falcone, I'm the Director of Facilities Operations.
Megan? Megan?
Sorry, my daughter came up right at that moment.
Oh.
There she
Hi,
is.
Megan's daughter.
I'm Megan Hack. My daughter is in 1st grade at LFJ, Emily, and my son is in ECP.
Very good. Nice to see you. And that Greenburgh CSD window, is that a link?
That's me doing the live stream.
Great. Gabriella? You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes, I got it.
Oh, there
Just
you go.
trying to close the door to minimize the noise. I have 3 boys. My oldest is at Highview, 2nd grader, and my second just started kindergarten at LFJ. And our little one is 2, hoping to, be in the district soon.
Yeah, very good. Faisal.
Hello, good evening. Can't see my screen, but anyway, I just want to say hello. My name is Faisal. My son is in kindergarten. I will be in and out of the meeting. I apologize if that causes any distraction, but it's bedtime as most parents have, so I'll have to jump in between. But thank you. I'll hopefully attend more meetings from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna.
Donna put in the chat that she's on a train. She won't be doing a
On the
vocal.
train, so she can't yell out in the middle of,
You want to introduce your wife? Yeah, okay. Okay. Carol.
Carol Allen, community member.
Okay. And just joining us is Sarah. Would you like to say a couple of words about yourself?
Hi, I'm Sarah Lazari, a community member.
Okay. Anyone I missed? Hearing none. Okay, next item of business is chair election. I'm interested. I don't know if other board members are interested or not. No? Ashley, I can't tell if you're nodding or shaking your head. All right, do I hear a nomination for chair of the Finance and Facilities Committee for the 21-22 school year?
I nominate David Warner.
Do I hear a
I
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I guess it. All right, I think I'm chair for another year. Okay, very good, thank you. Moving on, committee charges and meetings, and we're probably going to want to share a screen here. See if I can do that. And I want this. And I want this. All right, so the mission that was adopted for us last year is actually already up on the website. So I'll just look at this, and if we need to go back and look at the original, we can. But basically, if you look at the mission statement, we talk about combining the two committees. We used to have a fiscal planning committee and a facilities committee as separate things. The board felt we had too many committees, so we began combining committees together. And there are the policies that justify the creation of each committee that we put together. And then I guess the fourth paragraph down, the mission of the Finance and Facilities Committee is to provide feedback to the Board of Education regarding budget development, finances, and facilities. Specifically, the Finance and Facility Committee shall make recommendations to the Board of Education. Now, then there's a set of bullets underneath it, and the set of bullets will conclude the charges. This is a high-level sort of mission statement kind of thing. So it's for the development of the annual school budget. So in the spring, we tend to concentrate more on that. Regarding prioritization of the construction, remodeling, and repair of district facilities, which has occupied quite a bit of time, and it's how we came up with our phase one, and we're going to continue doing that. To update our 5-year financial plan, so we can project out a little ahead, to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report, and to ensure fiscal accountability and transparency. That's the set of charges we had last year. Each year, the superintendent has an opportunity to draft or redraft or change the charges. We usually make a suggestion to her if we want to change anything from what we had last year. She decides what to put up on the agenda, and then the board votes to approve it. So take a look there and see if this set of charges that I've just read to you still seems to fit the mission that we want to accomplish, or if there is anything that needs to be changed. Yes, Walter.
I bring up the same issue I brought up on Tuesday in the Communications Committee. The mission statement should just be the first part. That's the
Yes.
mission statement. And we should make that a clear distinction between the mission statement and the goals and activities. That's, but the mission statement, we should not include things like we are going to write this report or the other report. It just should be that first line. That's the mission statement of what we're organized to do. That's the
Okay.
mission statement. And the rest are goals and objectives, but consistent with the mission statement. So there should be a distinction between a mission statement, which is very broad and general, and goals and action steps.
What happened at the last committee meeting was that we talked about the mission statement being very broad and general. We talked
Right.
about charges being perhaps slightly more specific. And then we had kind of a debate going back and forth. It's like, well, if you make the charges too specific, you box yourself in. And what we finally settled upon was, okay, we'll go forward, handing this off to the superintendent more or less as is. Let her have a chance to look at it, and then we'll set goals at the next meeting underneath this that are more specific than this.
Okay.
Yes, Chris.
So Walter, the paragraph that begins the mission of the Finance and Facilities Committee, if we break out that sentence that begins specifically to a new paragraph and say, to accomplish this mission, comma, the Finance and Facilities Committee shall make recommendations to the Board of Education.
Yeah, that, so
as follows, and then the bullet points, does that satisfy? I think,
yeah, but that should be goals, that's not mission, that's goals and duties that you engage in to accomplish your mission, but they should be two separate things.
Yeah, and then we'll
Your
leave it
mission-
broader. Yes,
And I'll work
Yeah.
the word charges in.
yes.
Okay.
Shall make recommendation to the Board of Education
New paragraph.
for
To
these.
accomplish this mission, the following charges. Okay. And then those bullets will stay there for the charges. And then if we want to get into setting more in-depth goals, we can do that.
So a question about the specific charges listed there. The fourth one, to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. Is that something that's a normal operational procedure and doesn't need to be in our charges? Or is that something that we've recommended in the past and want to continue recommending? Because it's not
Something we have been recommending. I think it hasn't existed as a template in its present form forever. It's a relatively recent thing that you want a comprehensive financial report, and it includes all this stuff. And so there's a standard out there, and we're trying to get our particular district to achieve that standard. So it's sort of high level goal like.
I would think that a comprehensive annual financial report would be prepared by the Assistant Superintendent for Business and the Treasurer. Is that
And
really?
we have two liaisons to this committee. They are the Assistant Superintendent for Business and the Treasurer.
So are we saying that they need to run their report through us, even though they're the experts on this subject matter?
I guess my
Well-
question was, if the report isn't required, if this committee is recommending that it be done annually, or at least for this year, then maybe that's where it falls under the committee charges to recommend that that be enacted. I don't know, Ms. Raymond, what?
So, Trustee Warner, if you'll allow me to address this.
Sure.
I have sat through previous years and I update myself because even though I may know the financial world, I try to sit and listen to updated webinars. Okay, so I just finished the long range financial plan with New York State ASBO, with Forecast 5, which is our financial plan. And I am preparing a long range financial plan, which I think every district should have. I will show you at least 3 years previous, but because of the pandemic, it might be a little iffy, but that's okay. I'll show you 3 years, maybe 4 years, and then where we are going for the next 3 years. Why do we pick 3 years? Because things change constantly. So this long-range financial plan that I'm going to propose to the committee, to propose to the board, will be an ongoing document. All right. So as things happen, we will continually update it. I can project salaries. I can't project who's going to retire, who's going to resign, whatever. I will take our staff now and assume that they're going to go out for 3 years. Okay. That is a pessimistic approach, which is good with expenses because you never know. But we will continually update. And I think it's important to show that so that we can tie in a long-range financial plan with our strategic plan. What are we strategically trying to do? Professional development, anything with the pandemic, anything with any of our federal grants that we are getting new monies for. Let's tie that all in, because what is our main goal? Keeping taxes low. You know what? I don't live in Greenburgh Central School District, but I put myself as if I did live here to show and to imitate, hey, how much am I spending in taxes here and what am I getting out of it? Okay, that's the way I operate, the way I've always operated for the last 24, 25 years. And that's what we're going to do. You're not going to have the long-range financial plan tonight because I'm still working on it. I've been working on it all summer. I've been trying to accumulate data and to give you the most accurate information possible so that we as a committee can move forward.
All right, thank you. So the question then is this a worthy goal for the committee to put forward? I think so. Do people feel it is not something we should be pushing on?
Well,
Yes,
you know what, David, I hate, excuse me, Trustee Valen, but I think it is a worthwhile goal because we need to know where we are, where we plan to go, and where we want to be.
Is this different than the
Finance,
5-year plan?
facilities, everything. Oh, it entails everything, because you know what, it will entail the energy performance contract if the board decides to choose that. It will involve a bond project if we want to say, hey, all of our schools need to have the roofs replaced and the ventilation done. Let's do a bond. And I know the history, I do, but I think we need to start moving forward and we have to start addressing some of this stuff. And how is that going to be incorporated into the budget to keep taxes where they are, not increase them dramatically and or keep them lower so that we can provide a safe environment for our students?
In answer to Dave's question, I believe the 5-year financial plan is a subset of what's in the comprehensive annual financial report. I think if the comprehensive financial report is completed, fully, that it will supersede the other one. We kept it on the books because we weren't sure we'd get the big one done, and so there is a projection for 5 years. If you have your teachers' contracts in place and you just run the budget out 5 years, there's a relatively simple report for that. It could be outmoded once the new one is complete. Do you want to take that off?
No, I don't promote taking anything off. I'm just saying Lisa's 3-year plan could just be part of the 5-year plan.
Right.
We're just extrapolating 2 more years and we don't need to.
We're going to
create
end up with
anything
one
more.
bullet when we're done.
One bullet. That's it.
Okay.
Could I
And
suggest that?
quick. Sorry, Don. Go ahead.
You go ahead, you were speaking. I was going to suggest that instead of our saying to prepare the report, that we say to provide input to facilitate preparation of the report.
Yes.
Well, who's providing the input?
The committee is providing the input to the assistant superintendent and the treasurer so that they can prepare the annual financial reports.
What kind of input are we going to provide? Like direction or?
We don't have the data to prepare the report. That is their domain.
Right.
We can only give them feedback as to how the community feels about it, how parents feel about it, how board members feel about it. So
Okay, so provide input. So it's not data. Good. Okay, to provide input for a comprehensive financial report.
Yes.
So David, just a point of clarification here. What is the protocol we're using for this committee to speak? Are we doing the electric hands? Are we raising our hands? Are we just calling out just so we're all on the same page?
My problem right now is that I'm sharing the screen and I can't see everybody at once. If a hand raised comes to the top of the screen, I see that. If you just call out, obviously I only know about it after you called out. So right now,
Do you want me to monitor for raised hands and tell you when someone has raised their hand just to make this move along?
Sure, I think I've got Faisal.
Hello, yes, sorry. I would just like, if we're looking at the text itself, I was wondering if we could put down a simple line that the updated 5-year financial plan should be locked in step or integrated with the 5-year plan that Dr. Iverson's working on, the project plan, the proposal, the academic. I know it's a given that that will happen, but putting it in writing provides a little bit of I don't know, stability, credibility, but that linkage should be there in writing, even if it's
Integration with 5-year
5-year
district-wide plan.
Exactly. And David, if I may interject, Fazil, you are exactly right. When I sat through the presentation again for the update, we have to couple what we're doing with the strategic plan and make them work together. So it's not something that is just so simple to do. It's going to be a work in progress. And our committee here is going to update it continually to make sure that we work with the strategic plan so that we make sure that everything is working right with all of our buildings. So you are exactly right.
David, Mr. Simon has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to agree with what was said, is that you can't have 2 and 3 different financial plans. I mean, it should be one financial plan and taking a 3-year look, or if you want to take a 5-year look, but the basic data is there. So you don't have 2 and 3 different financial plans. So I think the idea of coordinating. Yes.
Mr. Simon, you are so right. And I got to tell you, I will tell anybody, I'll tell this committee, I'll tell the whole world, I am a financial geek. I analyze numbers. I look at all years previous. And you know what? It's hard now because of the pandemic, but we can analyze it. But I look at the past. I look at the future. Where did we go? Why did we do that? Why was a line budgeted too much? Why was a line under budgeted? What happened? I am not here to judge people because I'm not an educator. I am a financial person. I rely on the educators to tell me what do we need. And I look at the past history so that we can forecast the future.
Right.
And I take your comments wholeheartedly. And that's what we're going to do. You know what? I don't want people to think Lisa is judging you. No, Lisa is not judging you. Principal, director, superintendent, tell me what you need. Why do we need it? And let's work it into the budget. So that is good for our schools, but good for our taxpayers.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
and I just want to finish up by adding about the comment. Yes, we are not there to do the superintendent's job and to second guess the superintendent. We're there is to, as a reality check and say, and when the superintendent, assistant super present some financials, we might say, ask question, how do you come to that? Or why was this left out? Those are the type of questions we ask, not to dictate what should be in there, because she's the professional, we're not.
Okay,
Trustee Valen has her hand up.
go ahead.
All right, so if I were rewording this to cover some of the issues brought up, as well as one of my initial points, maybe we could combine number 3 and 4 to
Mhm.
say, so remember, we're following on the sentence that the committee shall make recommendations to the Board of Education to require and review a comprehensive annual financial report, and if you want to put in parentheses, and 5-year financial plan that reflects the overall
No,
GCS.
just one.
Okay, well, it's embedded in the other, but okay.
Yeah.
That reflects the overall GCSD strategic plan. So that's my suggested rewording. And then when I say require and review, we're reviewing because we're not creating it. I agree with Dr. Allen on that. And when I say require, I want to say, I'm quickly searching. I don't know that we have a policy that would actually put this in place on an ongoing basis, no matter who is in what position, whether it's the board or administration. So maybe we want to consider requiring this per policy so it's done on an ongoing basis into the future.
That's the board can decide if they want to require it in a policy. So you don't want to say integrated with, you want to say reflect?
I will actually bow to Lisa's terminology. She's been pretty clear that the two need to tie together. So as far as the wording,
All right,
yeah.
integrated
Integrated.
with.
Yeah.
The district-wide strategic plan to require and review CAFR, comprehensive annual financial report that will be integrated with the district-wide strategic plan. One bullet. Okay. Other comments?
David, there's a comment in the chat.
Oh, go ahead.
It reads from Faisal, this may be for future meetings, so we can defer the question till then, but would the 3-5-year plan have a set of benchmarks or targets we need to meet on a yearly basis? We kind of talked through that a little bit, so I think we're probably good there. The next question was from Mr. Dave Bridgell. To piggyback on Faisal Walter's statements, will funding for new programs and education endeavors, example given technology and computer science, also be reflected in the plan? Should these items become mandated in the near future?
They'll be in the district-wide plan, certainly. It's not necessarily, we also have a technology committee, you know. So safety and technology.
David, all of that is tied in together. So maybe I didn't make myself clear, but when we meet as a group, I've already met with technology, special ed, and facilities to tie everything in together because I don't want anything to be missed. Because my past experience in a different school district has been, for example, technology. A elementary school wanted X, Y, and Z, but the technology director had A, B, and C. Mid-year, we're caught in the middle. So I bring everybody together during the budget season. So let's say we're going to meet with LFJ, Highview, RJB, and middle school, high school, but technology, Mike Falcone and Jill Post would be there to hear what they had to say. Here's what we want for our building. All right, Carlos, is that what your understanding is? So we all have an understanding, because even though we may be 6 buildings, we are one school district. We all need to be on the same page. And that's what my goal is. That's what I did last year when I started in December. I brought everybody together to make sure everybody was on the same page so that we could be, even though I don't even know how to say it, but we're one school district, and I know we're separate buildings, but we all need to be equal. What Highview gets, what LFJ, what RJB, what Midland, or not Midland, Woodlands High School gets, it's everybody is equal according to the student population.
Okay.
Dr. Allen has her hand up.
Okay, Carol, go ahead.
Hi, Miss Allen.
Carol? You're muted.
Okay, we've spent a half hour talking about what we should be talking about. Can we move on to the substance of our agenda for tonight?
Are there any other comments on the charges for this year?
Yeah, I have one in that we said that the committee makes recommendation to the board. That shouldn't be. We make recommendation to the assistant superintendent for business. Is the assistant superintendent for business who make recommendation to the board?
No, the committee actually determines what the recommendations are to the board, and the board decides whether to act upon them or not. And then the board will push it back to the staff. Board retains
But
authority.
then what is the role of the assistant superintendent for business? If we go a setup that we make our own decision and recommendation, and she's making, I understand how that system works. I thought we're supposed to provide input to the assistant director so she could form a proposal for the board. Is that not how we are working as a committee?
What's happening is if we reach a point of formality, then we report back to the board at a following board meeting. There's a committee report section, and whoever is chairing usually comes back with a report. That report may contain recommendations. The implementation, the detailed implementation of those recommendations is going to be done by the administration, and the administration knows what the recommendations are really all about because they were in the meeting with us. And so we go in and we tell the board what we think, and the board decides whether they approve those recommendations or not. And then, and only then, is the administration authorized to follow the recommendations.
You missed my point, David. Is this committee empowered to make financial recommendations to the board? Or is the purpose, or is the purpose of this committee to sit down with the assistant superintendent for business and provide input so the assistant superintendent for business, after having that vetted by the committee, makes a recommendation to the board? So that's what I need to get a clearer understanding of how this committee works.
The committee makes recommendations to the board.
Directly to the board.
Directly to the board.
So what is the role of the superintendent for business, assistant superintendent for business?
David, can I jump in here?
Sure, go ahead.
So Mr. Simon, it's not just this committee, all the committees at GCSD function the same way. But to answer your question is, when does the ASB get to provide the input? Well, she's doing it now, right? As part of the committee, she's giving us the information. She's helping us formulate our recommendation to the board. Once the board gets the recommendation from the committee, the board evaluates it. Most of the time, the board will have additional questions that will be inquired directly to administration. In this case, the ASB. She'll provide information. It becomes a dialogue, right? And then once all of that has gone through, then the board decides whether to adopt the recommendation the committee made or not. So there are several injects where the ASB provides her expertise for this particular committee that influence those recommendations. Does that help?
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Any more comments?
I had one.
Go ahead.
Speaking of recommendations, we don't have to adopt it tonight, but it sounded like there was a desire from the committee membership here to formalize these pieces, these recommendations as future, right? Mandatory. I'll give you the exact verbiage here, going back here. The benchmarks and the conversation we spent the last 35 minutes on, if we wanted to formalize that as a recommendation for the board to consider, that to be an annual process. And the thought process in my mind behind that is, this year our committee is comprised of this membership. Next year it could be different. It could be different board members. It could be different community members. And part of having that structure in place, it helps to ensure there's consistency from year to year. So if we don't want to make the recommendation today, that's fine. But I would definitely say that we should at least put it on our agenda for a future conversation and just talk about it one more time once everybody's thought about it. And if the committee agrees, we should make the recommendation to the board for consideration. Thank you.
I would think we should probably look at the report and be happy with the report and understand what's in the report and then make that recommendation. So we'll await a draft from Lisa and then we can go ahead with that. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, good. Next piece. If you look at the mission statement towards the bottom, I have the list of members is the list of members that have sent me emails stating that, unless they're board members or liaisons, stating that they want to be on this committee. Is there anyone who is not on this list who wants to be? Take a look. We've got Carol Allen, Dave Breedlall, Hugh McCauley, Megan Moriarty, Hawk, Sarah Lazari, Katie McGee, Donna Morton, Steve Morton, Ashley Pineda, Faisal Siddiqui, Chris Vallon, David Warner. Well, and that's it.
David, Jessica Muldoon has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi, David. I
sent my
just
name.
emailed Ivy earlier in the week, so I don't think you probably didn't get the information yet, but I would like to continue to be in the committee.
Okay. And
Same with me. I sent my name in. I don't know if it was past the due date, but I definitely sent it in.
Jane Muldoon and Walter Simon. Very good. All right. Thank you.
David,
Gabriella?
Yeah, go ahead.
One second, sorry, I wasn't muting myself. I haven't had a chance to email Ivy. I will do it tonight. I had reached out regarding the link for tonight's meeting, but I will let her know.
Okay, Gabriella. Yeah, so I definitely need the email so I can put that on the list.
Okay, I'll send it to her tonight.
Great, thank you. And then down at the bottom, meeting dates. Last year we basically came up with meeting dates whenever we could find architects and engineers and administrators that were available. We kind of did it on an ad hoc basis. I think we ended up with 6 or 7 meetings. Do we want to go monthly? Is that better for everyone, or should we keep doing it on an as-needed basis?
I prefer set meetings because I belong to several organizations and that I'm involved in. And when I have set meetings, then I could commit to that meeting. So I clear my calendar for that and I commit to something. And therefore I could always attend meetings. If it's ad hoc, some days I'll be there, some days I won't. So my preference is to set up a calendar for the year. People know what the dates are and they adjust their calendar accordingly to maximize the number of days they can attend.
Okay, and people like Wednesdays and Thursdays? Ashley?
It looks like the majority of the comments in the chat are monthly as well. I agree with that. I would prefer Thursdays, but I'm flexible for Wednesdays as well.
Yeah, I would prefer Thursday.
Okay, so I will come up with a set of dates and run them past the committee at the next meeting, which I will come back on a Wednesday or Thursday, about a month from now, and we'll go from there. Okay,
I apologize. As I said before, I have to make a hard stop at 7:15. I hope I'll be able to participate fully in the future.
see you in a while. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on. Finance, Lisa Raymond, Assistant Superintendent for Business. We're going to start down the list. Let me pull back out of this. And Lisa, are there things that you want to show, or should I bring up the agenda, or do you want to just see people?
Well, Laser, are you there that you can bring up my grants?
So I need to stop sharing.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll make things easier for Laser. So the first thing is CRSA grant and American Rescue
Yeah.
Plan update.
Yep. If Laser, you could bring up my spreadsheet.
Okay, hold on. There we go.
So let me tell everybody. So there were 3 grants that were afforded to schools or to Greenburgh. One was the CARES Act. That has already passed. It's not even listed here. It happened during the pandemic. We spent the money on supplies, wipes, masks, everything to make everything safe for our students. Then they came with, oh no, that's not it, Laser.
Is it the other one?
Yep, it's the other one that I sent you that said CRRSA. There you go. So then we got what was called the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation, as we call it in the business world, CRISA. We were afforded almost $904,000. So when Dr. Reynolds was still here before he left, we had to have this application in. So we put an English language learner teacher in there, and we put in social emotional learning stipends for each building. And then part of the whole thing was ventilation. It was not so much ventilation, but it was what were we going to do to each school to make sure that our students were getting fresh air intake. So what was left over was about $575,000, which was what is needed at the early childhood program. So we put that in there. And then we had supplies and materials, and supplies and materials would mean for Mike Falcone to get buildings and grounds, to get the wipes, the face masks, but under supplies and materials, because it's under a federally standard set that we could do Chromebooks, etc. So we have been approved for $903,967. That is already approved. So here was our take. We know that ventilation needs to happen in every school. We know we need upgrades. If we could provide the upgrades for ECP, we could mark that off our list. So according to our building condition survey, ECP was $575,000 to get it up to ventilation code. We put that in the CRISA grant. It was approved. The American Rescue Plan, which was due August 30th, extended to September 30th, but we got it in under the August 30th deadline. we put salaries for teachers and teacher assistants that are needed because of accommodations that we have to make. And then Dr. Iverson had in there professional development. And then what are we going to do with the remaining money? Well, we know that we need ventilation. Part of American Rescue Plan, coronavirus, the CARES Act is all about ventilation to make sure that our schools are secure for students to come in. So we designated a little bit, but more than $1.6 million to ventilation. Hasn't been approved yet, and I'm not surprised because it ended today. And I'm sure that I will hear within the next week or two. Lisa, I need Fred and Jim to weigh in on what are you exactly going to do, which Fred helped me with the CRISA Act to get it approved. So we're in the process. We will have to keep the community updated. Not a problem. Dr. Iverson and I are on top of that. It's an ongoing process. So here's where we are, here's where we're at, and here's what's approved or pending.
I think we have a comment from the text. Can you read it, Ashley?
Sure. Miss Megan Hack, do those salaries cover returning TAs to the kindergarten classes?
Yes, they will. Right now, we made sure that we budgeted the appropriate salaries. So you have to remember the CRISA and the ARP are extended out to 2024. Can we sustain all of the salaries? I can't guarantee you that, but we are building that into our budget.
Okay, so question for me is, so if some of this money looks like it's going to cover items that we had designated in the project we known as phase 1, is that correct? You're muted.
That is correct. And I have to work with Fred and Jim to pull that out and put it in the designated columns so that we will have the appropriate funding.
Thank you.
David, Mr. Bridger has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Do we need to wait for this funding, and will it delay the work we need to get done, like for
Okay.
ECP before September? Is this shifting any of the planned work? Like,
No, so let me tell you, excuse me, the CRISA funding has been approved. So after tonight, once we talk with the committee, I can go to Fred and Jim and say, we've been approved for the coronavirus relief supplemental funds. Let's get ECP done. That building, here's the way I see it, and I may see it completely different. If we can get ECP done and off our building condition survey, off of our ventilation, that building is done. And we had the funding to do it. Let's get it done so our little kids can function. And then American Rescue Plan, we can roll all of that then into the American Rescue Plan to get the ventilation done in all the other buildings. So yes, which Fred and Jim is probably like, Christmas for you guys, but yes, CRISA was approved and I have $575,000 allocated to get ECP done so that we can do everything we need to do.
Okay, so no delay. Good. All right.
Well, no, I don't want to say, David, that there's a delay because Fred and
No
Jim will
delay.
probably back me up that now that we give them the okay that CRISA was approved, they have to do what they need to do to get it to facilities planning.
Correct.
Yes, and that was and phase 1 is scheduled for submission to NYSCD for this fall.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Should we move on to the energy performance contract? Yes.
David, a quick question on my side. So I guess it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. And my understanding based on our conversation is at some point in the future, once we've settled on which funding is going where, which items are getting pulled out, we'll have a conversation again as to what are the items we can move from the BCS now into phase one to take its place so that we can continue moving forward. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
Well, and you know what, Fred and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. We agreed when we asked the taxpayers to approve phase one. We also approved what was going to happen with the ECP. Okay. So I'm thinking that some of the work that needs to be done has already been done, but you guys need to tell us all of that.
Well, I think some of the work that got done under the phase that happened this summer, that was separate and apart from the 575,000. Those are two different issues and items. So that work got done over the summer, but we still are in design on the 575, whether that comes out of the CRISA money or it comes out of the phase one, $5 million, doesn't matter. Either way, we're proceeding ahead with design and we'll just fill out the paperwork accordingly when it goes to the state.
Correct. And I agree with that. And I'm hopeful at this meeting that I can tell Jim and Fred that we've been approved for the CRISA money. We've gotten state approval. We could go ahead and ask them to submit the paperwork to facilities planning to start the process so we can do that work.
David, Trustee Valen has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Well, this might be more appropriate for later when we actually talk about the facilities in phase one and spreadsheet suggestions, but I don't know if we ever saw what was finally in phase one on, when we were looking at our initial BCS spreadsheets, because I know there were some things moved in and out. So I'm just gonna to say that we do need an update of the status based on the BCS, but I think we'll discuss that more later.
Okay.
Ties in with what Ashley was saying.
I had thought that the last time I looked at phase one, I don't have the document in front of me, that nothing substantive had really changed. I don't know if Jim Wadig or Fred Seba can weigh in on
You
that.
know what? And I can address that, Fred, and nothing has changed because nothing has gone to SDD. Nope, the architects are preparing that, but nothing has gone to SED for approval.
Right. The projects that we developed in phase one, nothing's really changed from the agreed to projects that we were given direction to proceed ahead on. We can reshare that document with the committee just so everyone has a fresh memory or something that they can refer to. But we did publish a document that highlighted in color what projects were in phase one, what we're going to be in phase two, what was going to be energy performance. So those things haven't changed, except for the consideration of the mansion, because there was that damage that was done with the water leak. So now we had some plumbing work that was going to be done, but now that bathroom where the plumbing was going to get fixed no longer exists. So we may just be removing that, building from the scope of work for the time being. But we haven't submitted the paperwork to the state yet. We're in the process of preparing it. Now that we know that there's certain grant money that needs to be identified, we can proceed with finishing up the paperwork, get it to the district for signatures.
Okay. Can we move on to the energy performance contract?
Sure.
Okay.
So we put the RFP out on the street about 2.5 months ago. I believe there were 6 or 7 energy service companies that picked up on the RFP and showed up at the initial mandatory pre-bid meeting. We had a discussion with them at that point to fill them in, answer any questions that they had. And then they had the ability to walk the buildings, which they did. We got responses from 3 out of the 6 or 7, which was Not bad. I was happy with that. I was hoping for one or two more maybe, but I understand that they have to be selective. This is not a huge project, but it's a nice project. So we got 3 proposals back. One was from Con Edison Solutions, who is a wholly owned subsidiary of Con Ed. One was from a company called Energy Systems Group, who we have done a couple of energy performance contracts with recently. And the third one is from a company called Day Automation, which we're doing an energy performance contract with right now over in Mechanical Hills. So those are the 3 that we got back. Because it's not a bid, it's an RFP, we encourage them to be creative in how they feel that they can save energy. So the prices don't line up. So for instance, we have pricing, Day Automation had a price for their project of 3.3 million. ESG had a price for their project for 5.7 million, and Con Edison Solutions came in with a price of 11.4 million. Obviously, in the $11.4 million project, there's more work included in there than the other projects. These are very voluminous responses. In fact, 2 of them are well over 700 pages. So I've skimmed through them quickly just for highlights, and then I'm going to go back through them with a fine-tooth comb and really compare them. But the type of things that are in there, Con Edison Solutions picked up most of the items that we had identified in the BCS as items that we were hoping to fit under the energy performance contract. ESG picked up some of them, and Day Automation only picked up a few of them. So it looks like at this point that the Con Edison Solutions proposal probably best fits the district, but I do want to go back through with a lot more detail. So what my next steps are that I will create a comparison matrix. I've already started to do that between the 3 proposals, and then I will rate them on each of the energy conservation measures, one against the other, and I will rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very important to the energy performance contract and 1 being not so important. And then I will come up with an overall rating. I will have many questions, I'm sure, at that point, so I will reach out to them, to the 3 ESCOs, and get them to respond to my questions. And then I will come back to the district with the overall spreadsheet. I will sit down with the district at that point and ask as to what items the district likes out of each of the proposals. Because it's not a bid, it's an RFP, we're allowed to negotiate scope at this point. So what we'll do is the district might say, well, I like that firm's lighting proposal the best of all. So I'll go back to the other 2 firms and say, we'd like you to match this lighting proposal. You might say, I like that other firm's boiler replacement proposal best. So I'll go back to the other 2 firms and ask them to update their proposals. So eventually what will happen is when I get those responses back, it will be much more apples and apples, and it'll be much more aligned with the district's priorities and what the district would like to see. Now that everything is laid out and you have all of these suggestions on how you can save energy, you're going to like some, you're not going to be that interested in other ones. And therefore we'll negotiate with all 3 and get it to very close to what you guys are looking for. And then we'll go back, we'll update the comparison matrix, and then we'll come back and make a recommendation to the district as to which firm we feel has the best proposal as far as its suitability to what you're looking for and what your goals are. So that at that point, there's still no cost or obligation to the school district. This next step after that is once we recommend and you select a firm, they go ahead and do what's called a detailed energy audit, sometimes called an investment grade audit. They'll come back and spend even more time, bring their contractors back in, really sharpen their pencils, and really put that project together. That takes a couple of months. And then once they come back, if the district is still in agreement that that's the best proposal and that they want to move ahead with an energy performance contract, then you would actually enter into a contract with that particular ESCO, energy service company. So that's kind of where we are. That's the process that's ahead of us. It's probably a 3-month process before we actually get to a final award. But I'm excited with the responses we got back. I think if you remember, we had originally projected a $7 or $8 million energy performance contract. That's kind of where we had thought we would end up, and we're anywhere between 3.3 and 11.4. So I think we're going to end up in the 10 or $11 million range, which is good. And it's interesting. Con Ed has an interesting proposal in here for a battery energy storage system, a BESS. They would like to locate it on the high school site, and so that's pretty exciting. So basically, what you do is you store energy overnight when it's cheaper, when the cost of electricity is cheaper. Put it into this battery system, and then during the day you sell that back to Con Ed, or you use that power. So it saves the district a lot of money. So it's a big one. It's a fairly big BESS system that they're proposing, but it's just kind of exciting. So we're going to continue to go through that, and at some point that we we'll come back to you with our final analysis, and then sit and figure out what you want to do. I just saw a question from Carol pop up regarding photovoltaic. So it's interesting, Con Ed did not propose any photovoltaic. They did review it, but they felt that due to the age of the roofs, that it didn't make a lot of sense, because they would have to do roof work in order to put the PV up there. They also looked at ground mount, putting it down at grade level, and they looked at carport. But the ground mount and carport is more expensive, because you have to keep it away from the building, then you have to run all the utilities back in. So they did not include a proposal that included photovoltaic, nor did Day Automation. They did not include photovoltaic either. ESG did, however, but only on the roof of the middle school, high school. They included a solar component on that building. So if that's something the district is interested in, we can ask the other firms to look at that. So that's the kind of thing that we have the ability to come back to you and get some input on, and then go back and negotiate with the contractors.
Dave, Mr. Bridgall has his hand up.
How interconnected are these scope items? Could it be that, hey, daylight controls is very efficient at lighting, let's pick them for that. Con Ed is good at gas conversions, let's pick them for that. Is that possible? Instead of because it's contracts plural, right? So hopefully we don't, if there's a better way to do this more efficiently, is that possible?
Unfortunately, it is not. We have to select one ESCO to do the entire energy performance contract. But what we'll do is we'll take the good parts from each one and try and get whoever we end up selecting and have them do those good components. So Day Automation is very big on controls. So we want to make sure Con Ed is doing that if we select Con Ed or ESG, whatever. So we will kind of roll them into one and try and get the best of all of the proposals and get our finalists in order to do all that work. So the answer is we can't really split it up and give it to different people, but we can try and get all that work into whoever we award the contract to. David?
I should have asked this much sooner. Just confirm, is the mansion included in the contract?
The mansion is included in the contract as of
Good.
right now. We asked them to keep that in because the district hadn't made a decision one way or the other what to do with that, so we left it in. If the district does make a decision that you're not going to be using the mansion, or you don't want to do energy upgrades there, we can easily take it out. There's not a tremendous amount of work in the mansion that's being proposed right now, but it is in the project.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, moving on.
I just had a comment.
Go ahead.
I think that we'll see how these RFPs pan out and what we end up doing, but long-term considerations, if we did go with a solution in the high school that was storing electricity into batteries, that is a nice segue for the future. Maybe once the high school roof has been done, if we wanted to, add on some solar panels or something like that to charge those batteries, then that would also help with the fact that we currently have no real major, huge emergency power backup for those buildings, right? For that building in particular, and all our buildings are in that state. So that might be a good way to achieve two goals at a time in the future, obviously.
Right.
Good. Other questions? Okay, so the next two items on the agenda were the 5-year financial plan and the status of the comprehensive annual financial report. And we seem to have spoken about that already. Lisa, do you have anything you want to add onto there? Or are we
Well,
good?
yep, I'm doing the long range financial plan, and Amy and I just finished the external audit,
Mhm.
which will come to you within the next couple of weeks. We're providing everything that they need, and it went, I believe it went well.
Okay. And the audit committee will convene a meeting to take a look at the results of that.
Exactly.
Okay, and then that will be fed back into the report. Property boundary update.
I would defer to Mike Falcone if he is still on. He has been doing
He is?
the initial surveys and catch-ups with all of the property owners.
Mike?
Okay, the property, the people who responded and said that they removed stuff from their property or they have nothing on their property. I've been to those houses. Some of them has stopped mowing past their property line, but the others, they still have grass. They extended their yard. Of course, they did exactly what the church has did, cleared an area. And so what's to say that they won't use it? It's manicured. It's a lawn. I did see a couple of places they still did not remove their stuff. I haven't hit the co-op complex yet. I know they said they need a little bit more time to remove their stuff. But I mean, what does the district want to do? You want to just say, we'll put a fence up? Now everybody knows where the borderline is. Okay, so no house, or if they sell it, say, well, this is my yard and I can use it as I please. I believe one lawyer said it's a liability. So I know we suggested putting fence up, slowly of your borders. Now they know exactly where their property line is instead of saying it's right about here. Now I have a rough idea of where it is. I can only look at a survey, but without measuring everything. But I know what 50 feet is, behind somebody's house. But it's up to what the district would like to accomplish.
Okay, what I don't want is to end up with adverse possession and be someone accusing us of not doing our due diligence to defend our property line. And beyond that, I have nothing against, if I had my druthers, the church would have a community garden that would clearly demarcate where the church property ended, but wouldn't keep people from actually doing something, and that would require an agreement with the town, similar to what we have with the next across from the early childhood program. I don't know if that can be worked out or not, but the default is if we have to do something to defend our border, then we put up a fence. If we can't make that work, that's what I think. What do other people think?
So David, Carol Allen has a comment in the chat, and then I have a comment after that. So
Okay.
her comment reads, "For now, can we put stakes/markers on the property lines rather than a fence?"
We can hire the company to come back out there and put stakes on every piece of property. Okay. But that's not going to stop them. That's going to say, oh, okay, there's a stake there. In fact, one area that we put a stake there, we couldn't find it anymore. Okay. Without really saying much, but we went there to look for a stake and it's gone. So what's to say somebody's going to take it out, remove it? The grass can, grow over it.
So thank you, Mr. Falcone. My question is, I think without knowing the cost for a fence, it's kind of hard to make that decision. So could we get a cost for a fence as to what it would actually cost, an estimate? And then once we have that information, we can have a bit of a little more involved conversation on that. I'm thinking of it from multiple angles. The liability obviously is one of the biggest concerns I have. We know a school district is oftentimes sued for various things. You know, basically, if it rains on a day and there's a stroke of lightning, we can get sued for something, right? So that is definitely a concern of mine. But there's also the balancing of the cost. I don't know how much a fence would cost to erect. So if we could get a quote, I think that would be helpful.
I will get you per linear foot. I'll get that price for you. I wouldn't, I would not fence off the whole campus right off the bat. I mean, we have a fence that runs alongside the golf course, and does is part of our flag property. There's a fence near LF Jackson, but I would start in certain areas, and every year you say, I'll put up, 100 feet or 1,000 feet, okay, on certain adjoining properties, okay. There, I think it'll be reachable instead of saying we're going to fence our whole property out. So that is reachable. I'll come up with like a cost estimate, and I'll probably put into 3 phases, 3 different years.
Thank you. There's some comments in the chat. I'll go ahead and read them. Dr. Allen says, has the board previously voted not to erect the fence?
That was only on one spot. I wanted to erect the fence where the church is, because they ended up cutting over a football field of trees down, and then they ended up putting fill in.
Thank you. And then Trustee Vallon has 2 comments in the chat. I'll read them one after the other. So just a small request. Is it possible for those using the chat to participate verbally? It will help both those not paying attention to the chat and those who will view this meeting later to benefit from your thoughts. Second comment, I understand some are putting kids to bed, etc., but if you're able, please participate verbally in the dialogue.
Okay. All right, then. Are there other comments? Does anyone object to getting the estimate? Okay, estimate it is. So I'll recommend that. And this is not limited to the adjoining the church property, correct? The scope is larger.
Yeah, no, it's larger than that. Just troubled areas. I would point out basically where the surveyor said that there are areas where they extended.
Significant overreach, okay. Trouble areas, okay, very good.
Sorry, Mike, when you said that some of the stuff had been moved, are you saying like the people who had sheds and stuff over on our property line, had those been moved back onto their own side, or are those still there?
I only know of one property that has a shed and a playground on our property. That has not been moved yet. As of 2 weeks ago, I think I was told to take a look at it. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago.
Did we give them a deadline to move it, or?
I'm not quite sure what the district did with the mailing. I was not part of that.
Who would have handled that? Does anyone know?
I believe the lawyers were also involved because they're the ones who wrote the letter.
We can get the letter and look at the deadlines.
Okay, thank you.
Dave?
Just with the estimate, we also have an estimate of actual linear footage. Not just like, it could be like $35, $40
total
per linear
footage,
foot,
okay.
but like how much of it do you going to put in?
I don't remember what the contract was bid on. It was bid on putting a fence up. We have that contract every year.
Oh, so we have a number.
That's why I said I'll give you a number per linear foot.
Oh, okay.
Don't know it offhand.
Got it.
Okay. So next item is repair reserve fund balance. And we've come to the end of the year and circling back around, how much leftover money did we end up with? Do we know?
Nope, we don't know yet. The audit just ended last week. They're finalizing all their numbers and we will know what we're going to transfer into there.
Okay, so we'll come back in a month. Leave that on the agenda. Okay, and then Proposition 1.
Well, I would defer Proposition 1 to Fred and to Jim to see where they are with SED.
Okay.
So we are in design on Proposition 1. And we are on schedule to submit it to SED this fall in order for the work to happen next summer. So we've been looking at the buildings and, sorry.
Excuse me, that's phase 1.
Yes,
Proposition
phase
1 is an initiative for December 14th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Proposition 1 for December 14th is on schedule. I spoke with the Ivy today and we are on schedule to have that vote on December 14th.
Okay. And the question that I think that came up at a previous meeting of, I think it might have been the CEC, was that we were trying to get Proposition 1 to happen mid-year because we were trying to move money originally out of the repair reserve fund so that we could put a roof on the mansion before the winter was shut everything down, and that way there'd be less leakage and less further damage to the mansion.
Okay, so here is the whole Megillah. Money was transferred into a repair reserve. Repair reserve is just for repairs. What needs to be done for the mansion roof is a replacement. Okay, so our architects, not our architects, I'm sorry, Fred and Jim, our attorneys advised us that we had to establish a capital reserve. Capital reserve is there to do a bigger project, not just a mansion roof repair, a mansion, I don't know, a pool repair, whatever. So it's a broader scope. Okay. So to establish a capital reserve, you can't establish, contribute, and spend from a capital reserve all in the same year, because a capital reserve is designed to be a savings account. You ask the public, can we contribute? Can we create a capital reserve? Say yes. Can we contribute to a capital reserve up to 10 years, $15 million? Doesn't mean we're going to put $15 million in it. That's what we can cap it at. All right, let's do that so that we can do projects that are, let's fix the mansion. Let's fix all of the roofs in the building or on campus. Let's fix all the ventilation, that kind of thing. It can't be specific work.
So
what we're asking the public to do is to create a capital reserve on December 14th so that we can start contributing money so that we can start doing these repairs.
So you're saying that we're trying to have it specifically on December 14th so that by the time we get to June 1st, it won't be something that was inaugurated or July 1st. It won't be something that was created the same year that we're doing the project. Is that why we're still going in December instead of letting it out to the budget vote?
Exactly. So if we establish, if we create and contribute in December, by the time we get to the May vote to approve the budget, we could say to the taxpayers, hey, you approved for us to contribute in 2019-20, 1.3 million. 2020-21, 1.331 million. That money is sitting there. Let us use that now to do this. It's previous year's money.
I see. Katie McGee?
McGee. Yep.
Hi. My question about the December 14th vote is, what do you have in mind, Lisa and whoever and the board, time frame wise, and also just what do you have in mind for doing the getting the public aware of this and getting the buy-in for them to vote? I know you can't say vote yes, but I can. And I'm happy to spread that word, but I want to know, like, do we have an action plan?
All right. Thank you so much, Katie, for asking this. The December 14th is to just establish a capital reserve. So previous administration made a repair reserve. That's perfect. But repair reserve is for repairs. It's not for something that you're going to replace. It's exactly for repairs. So we're asking the taxpayers, let us create this capital reserve so we can accumulate or contribute money to fund another project. So let's say this. Let's say that the district wants to do a capital project that wants to do all of the roof repairs and all of the ventilation. Let's say it costs $15 million. Let's say in the capital reserve, we have $5 million. Taxpayers, can I spend the $5 million I have in the capital reserve and have to bond $10 million? That's what it's aimed to be. It's a savings account to say, taxpayers, we know we need to do these projects. We know we need to do these upgrades. We have this money set aside. Let us use it to do these projects, but I might not have enough money. I'm going to use this much from the capital reserve, and then I'm going to ask you to bond the rest.
And how do we get the word out?
Well, you know what, David, that's a great question. It's going to be the same venue that we did with the budget vote. We'll use our PR people. We'll put the word out, and I will be at the vote. I will be wherever we're going to promote it, just to explain it. You know, it may be common for all of us to understand it, but it's not to the layperson, and that's not a bad thing. We just have to educate them. Here's what we want to do. Here's how we're going to do it.
So multiple presentations in the same way that we do for the budget.
Well, and I got to tell you, David, in my past history, when I was promoting the budget in multiple schools, we would set up a meeting in LFJ, Highview, RJB, different days, different times, different whatever. It doesn't matter. So people, taxpayers could come and say, oh, I couldn't make it on Monday at 7 o'clock, but I could make it on a Saturday at 9 o'clock. It's fine. I don't care. We'll promote it so that people can understand.
Well, you know, we're in a COVID environment, but I'm speaking too much. I think other people should get to speak. Ashley, who's first?
So Ms. Sarah Lazari, followed by Dr. Kara Allen, and then Trustee Valen.
Sarah.
Hi, thank you for the explanation, Lisa. I feel like that was the most clear that I've heard, so thank you. My question is, with the will not having that fund yet impact anything in what was already passed for phase 1, and or if we're otherwise ready to go through in phase 2, does it hold anything back from that?
Okay, so for phase 1, you are correctly right. No, nothing is going to happen for phase 1 because the taxpayers voted on it. It's going to go to the capital fund. It's everything in the future. So There is money sitting in the repair reserve now, which is legitimate, but it's limited to what it can be used for. Okay, so it's more of an advantage for us to have a capital reserve so that we can put money into it so that you can ask the taxpayers in the future, hey, we need this, can we use it?
Okay. So potentially if we wanted to put something through that was part of the phase 2 and we wanted to do that, I don't know when, but
Okay,
before
so-
next year, would we not be able to do it?
Nope, nope. So here's what you would do. You could do one of two things. You could say in the budget process, okay, here's phase 1. Thank you, taxpayers, for doing that. Here's what we want to do in phase 2. Would you, one of two things, move it to the capital fund as a phase 2 project or move it to a capital reserve so that we could designate it for a phase 2?
Okay, thanks.
Carol?
In the past, did the voters already approve spending the $1.3 million on the mansion roof?
In the past,
STD wouldn't
in the
approve.
budget, there was a capital interfund transfer that was said it will be moved to the repair reserve. Okay? It was done legitimately, but a repair reserve is for repairs.
Ms. Raymond, I understand that. I'm just trying to clarify. Has the community already voted to spend the $1.3 million to repair the mansion, to put on a new roof at the mansion? I saw
What they
Mr. Warner
think-
shaking his head.
What they think was for a repair, yes, but it's not a replacement.
I understand that difference, but my point is the voters have already said, we want you to fix the mansion roof by replacing it. We already did that. And now the lawyers are saying, oh, gee, you approved putting the money in the wrong place. And they are essentially sending us back to square zero. And we need to figure out how to get around that quickly. We can't afford to wait another year to go through the various gyrations to move the money to where it should have been put in the first place.
I agree, and that's something that we have to consult with our attorneys.
All good. Agreed. Chris?
Going back to Katie's initial question about how we're communicating these propositions to the public, I'd like to recommend that administration or that this committee recommends to the board that they work through the CEC committee to set up special meetings, to work with the PTAs. I believe there's going to be an item in the fall newsletter about this. I'd like to recommend that either via the CEC or administration directly reach out to different civic organizations to set up virtual meetings and answer any questions our neighbors would have. I don't know if anyone else on this call has specific recommendations to make to this committee, other committees, or administration about how to get the word out, but I don't want to just assume it's going to get done. That's why I want to name some specifics. Thank you.
We have all the listed, all the highlighted, the neighborhood associations, we have email addresses for them as of 2020. So we have to run through that list and work that list. A few of the people actually come to the meetings, or at least are already on the distribution list for the minutes of the meetings. And so we know those emails are live, and we should reach out to those that aren't included yet. So that's definitely something to do in addition to what's the normal, make sure that the fall newsletter that goes to every household gets out to everybody. Do greater web presence, since you're not going to have a bunch of in-person meetings for people to go to. and move forward to that. And December 14th is not that far away.
So as a point of process, David, does this committee need to make an official recommendation to the board to make these things happen or not?
It's going to go in, it'll go in the report. I don't think we need a formal recommendation, but we can make one if you want.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt
Okay.
to memorialize it.
Okay, so basically, we urge the district to make all reasonable efforts to promote knowledge of the upcoming bond.
Including outreach to civic organizations and various virtual meetings to civic organizations, building PTAs and CEC agenda items.
Anyone opposed to that? All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
We're good.
Aye.
Okay. Sarah, you still have your hand up?
No, sorry, I'll lower it.
Okay.
David, Mr. Bijal had his hand up twice and then put it down, so I'm not sure if he still has something to say or not.
Not really, just considering the doomsday scenario where it doesn't pass. Does everything not happen? Hi, did
Hey,
that come
Lisa,
through?
what happens if we can't create the capital reserve fund? We put everything in the repair reserve fund, we spend as quickly as we can. What do we do?
Nope. If we can't put anything in the capital reserve fund, that's a really good question.
Can we pay it out of the general fund?
You know what? I'm not positive. I would have to speak with Laura about that. It's gonna be really tricky.
Okay.
And I gotta tell you, the capital reserve fund is not a hiding fund. It's the appropriate way to do things that we funnel money in there that we have to acknowledge or to address things that need to be done. It's just the proper way to be due.
Okay. All right. It's 8:05. So I think at this point, we should move on to the status of all the facilities projects. And there's a spreadsheet that should facilitate that.
Yep, I provided a spreadsheet to
Let me-
David and the committee months ago, and
see
I
if I can get
updated
to
it. Yep, I updated it just yesterday. And at the bottom, if you look, there are multiple tabs. And I highlighted those who had work that Mike and his facilities committee did work on. So for example, we did the curbs. A lot of the curbs have been done, not all of them, but part of them. A lot of the ECP work has been done. Work at the high school has been done. All of those kind of things. And then David was gracious enough to put this together for a summary of these pages. And you know what? I have to admit, I have to work with Fred and I have to work with Jim just to make sure that what we are doing, some of the items, I understand what they're putting in their building condition survey, but I'm not sure that it's included in the survey that they provided to us. So we just have to coordinate that. But like the playgrounds, all 3 playgrounds are done, came in exactly at the cost. The
You want
work
me to
that was
start
done,
ranking the tabs at this point?
go right ahead. Yep.
Okay. You wanna do
So
curbs
if you
and
look at
sidewalks?
curbs and sidewalks, okay, so ECP and LFJ have been completed. We know that ECP, which Michael can confirm, ECP we thought was gonna just come under $10,000, but once they took the curbs off, they realized that there was more work to be done. It was gonna increase the cost. But when we got to LF Jackson, even though it was a little bit more extensive, it didn't come in under the cost, okay? So the high school and RJB still have to be determined. we are, Michael and his team and with the contractor are determining, because our community is concerned about the
Roadway,
what?
roadway.
The roadway to the athletic center, you know, we have to improve on that. So it is, we're not ignoring it. We understand the concerns, but Mike has been meeting with our contractor. It's going to take at least 5 to 7 days. If and when we determine to expand the road, make it a two-way pass, we don't have time to do that. Where are we going to drop off our kids, pick up our kids? So he's trying to work that out. So it's not that we're not addressing it. We know it's a concern and we're going to try to address it, but that's not indicated here because we don't know how much that's going to cost. So if you look at the bottom in all of the tabs, there's like 18 to 25 tabs that we're trying to keep everybody updated on what it is we're trying to do in all of our schools. I really have to work with Fred and Jim and their offices because, for example, all the work we did at ECP this summer, which was phenomenal, where does that fit into our building condition survey? I can't identify the areas there. It's just, I need them to help me to do that. So this is kind of an update. It's Lisa's update. It's Mike's update with Mike's input. I haven't had a chance to involve Fred or Jim, but we're making progress. We really are. We're trying to do it. We're trying to keep things up to date. It's an ongoing process.
Okay, so before we move to other tabs, and I can see I should have worked from left to right, I'll start doing that. But there was not one curb cut, there were 2 curb cuts. One was the more extensive one that was the access road out to the area by the gym and where that curve gets too narrow. And the second one was, I think, a portion of the playground in front of the Upper Woodlands High School parking lot. And I think people trying to get in and out of there, I thought that was the least expensive one. That needs to be widened out a little bit. I think we had some pictures of that. Is that included in the estimate you're taking in or you're having made?
I did not get the estimate of that little path. I know what you're talking about, of the upper parking lot, because that road would have to be widened as well. We haven't figured out how we're going to do it. We have high power lines that are just to the left of the curb. So if we end up taking that curb out and extending it, so we haven't gotten a price on that one yet, but that's a shorter, that is a shorter distance. That's still on my radar. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to widen that. That price is not in here.
Correct. It's not on the spreadsheet yet, but you're working on getting that estimate as well.
Right.
Carol Ellen raised hand.
But I just want to make you understand, only to the entrance of the parking lot. It's not going further to the high school. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because, you know, you might think that it's supposed to be 2 lanes all the way to the high school. No.
Okay. Carol?
I understand the concern about this issue, but I would hope we would not lose sight of the fact that we have a lot of structural work to keep our buildings sound. And I think that should take priority as far as spending over widening any streets or curbs that are not being used by pedestrians on a regular basis.
Chris?
Sorry, 2 things. First, just so the community understands that the curb issue was pointed out to us by our insurer as something that needed to be fixed. So we can't ignore an issue when it's pointed out to us specifically. Secondly, just a couple follow-up questions, Mike. So the road going to the parking lot, does the whole road need to be widened, or can we just widen the curb to turn in? Because two vehicles will pass there. It's just the turn in that's an issue. And secondly, going back towards the gymnasium, is that, you're saying you're actively searching, working on getting a pricing for that?
I have the price widening going towards the gymnasium.
You have the price.
Traffic, the buses around the turn, even when they're passing each other. Okay,
'Cause that's a daily problem. Yeah.
That's the other problem. So I did get a price on going towards the gym. That's the easier one than the shorter area, which is where the athletic road meets the road that comes from the high school. That's a short little area there.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, we thought we were going to continue that curbing to the left until we figured out there was high powered lines right underneath, right to the left. So our first initial plan, now we're thinking about, we have to excavate a little bit more to the right.
Right.
So not get an idea or an estimate on that one. Because if you go to the other side, don't forget, that's a straight line that goes all the way down to the main road.
Yeah, which is why I know the community, we've been suggesting to the right as you're entering towards the gymnasium.
Oh.
So that's the price you don't have yet?
Going up to the upper parking lot.
Okay, but you have, going back to the gymnasium, you have widening it to the right. The only problem with getting that done, it sounds like, is time, because it's a 7-day job and we have traffic going back and forth every day.
Moving the left side, going towards the gym, that has to go about 4 feet. In order to make this work, you're not going to make it bigger on one end, and then it's going to bottleneck down. So what you do is you take straight lines. You don't just say, okay, let's widen here, then widen over here, then widen over here, and the buses are going to go like this. No, it has to work. It has to work with the flow. So it's easier if you're going towards the school. It's easier to take the curb line, which a third of it has to be replaced anyway. And Matt Smith has mentioned this for the past 6 years about the curbing that's over there. So, but that side's going to be going over about 4 to 5 feet. I think it's about 5 feet. Okay, and then where you took your measurements, I saw that on that turn right there.
Thank you, Morton family. Thank you to the Morton family who did the measuring in the photo.
Okay, so, but when you start coming towards that entrance area, there's more of a drop off there. So now we might have to go, take the lines to on the other side. We had that price and that plan to do that, but going up the road towards the high school, we don't.
Okay, so it's just okay. So again, just to inform the public, if you're not driving over there, all of the drop-offs are going to the back of the middle high school building right now. So there's constant traffic flow every morning, and two vehicles, especially when there's a bus as one of those vehicles, cannot go through. So there's just a huge backup. And then just add on top of that, the possible liability issue with cars getting hit, students who are walking to school. It's an issue that does need to be addressed sooner rather than later, in my opinion. But for those that aren't aware of what we're talking about, that's a brief summary.
Steve.
Thank you.
Pretty much Chris answered what I was going to say to the public. If you're not there, you have no idea. But this, to me, is actually a critical issue, because there's a lot more kids walking, there's a lot more traffic, and God forbid anything happened. And I really think once we get this addressed, I'll feel better, because I'm up there every day watching how close things are happening. And nobody wants to be there and say, hey, remember they talked about that 2 years ago? So I think it's a priority, and I want the public to know that if they haven't been there, it is an issue, So when you're there every day watching kids and watching parents and watching buses squeeze by, it's more than just, it's not a priority, it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now, if there are no further comments, I'm going to go back to the earlier tab. I think ECP, we pretty much did what we needed to do. Any comments on this? Mike?
Oh, there you go. ECP, the boilers have been completed, okay? Windows they're completed, they're all in. We just have some trimming to do on the inside and on the outside for the caulking. Fans are in the window. As I mentioned on the last meeting, I put, I don't want to call them exhausts. I want them relief vents in every classroom. So if you're pumping air in, it has somewhere to go. It's going up through the attic. In the main office, we threw an exhaust fan. They already had ventilation. They had vents there already. I just hooked up an exhaust fan to those to the ductwork. Actually, reconnected ductworks, and that is working over there. Baseboard heat, that's the upgrade of the baseboard heat that has been completed as well. That's up and ready to go.
Good. Phase one. I think
So
that's
David, before
PBS.
you move from there, before you move from there,
Sure,
I have
back
a
to
question.
ECP.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question, and then Mr. Bijal has one too. So my question, Mr. Falcone, the downspouts at the ECP main building, have they been repaired?
Yeah, that hasn't been done yet. I've had our roofer over at the high school, Highview School, Bailey School, and LF Jackson right now. So, you know, I and the bus garage. So he's been jumping around, but he knows about the downspout, and he said sure he could take care of it.
Okay, perfect. And then David, Mr. Bijal has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just making light that the estimates are so exact. Like, how did we generate these estimates?
Excuse me, which one?
The last three.
You see how the numbers are exact to the penny?
Yeah.
So it seems like maybe we hadn't created the spreadsheet when we had already figured out what the actual costs were, when the invoice was already done. Is that what's going on?
Probably when she did the spreadsheet, those bills probably already came in. Baseboard, office classrooms.
So we're looking at a $30,000 cost overrun.
We were pretty estimate with what the contractor told us what was going to be done.
Okay, but there's an additional 30,000 over the estimate cost, right? Because of the bills are still coming in for window and drop ceiling.
The $36,000 was done by our in-house, which was what we wanted to do.
Oh,
So
no,
if you
just
look at
the-
the drop ceilings and the window replacement, I haven't received those bills yet. Those are the estimates. And Michael has been very good with his contractors to say, don't just give us an estimate. What's it going to cost? And that's what it's coming in at.
Wonderful.
You're talking about the fact that there's no estimated cost in the column to the right of the actual cost on the 36,000.
Well, the actual
No, no, that's
cost for the
fine.
drop ceilings and the window replacements, those jobs are done. But I checked today, we haven't received those bills yet. I'm not going to tell you what the actual cost is until I receive those bills.
Minor point. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Wait, Steve has his hand up. No. All right. All right. Moving on to phase one. And I believe this is Lisa and the architect.
Well, I would defer this to Fred and Jim to find out where we are with phase one and the submittals to SED.
Well, basically, we are right on schedule. That's the schedule appears here. We have had our architects and engineers up in the district doing field work, meeting with Michael, looking at different things. So we're in the process of design. So we're still anticipating a fall submission to State Education Department. The good news is that right now SED is only 4 to 6 weeks projected review time. So that's great. So we should get approval relatively quickly, and then we can get them out to bid early next year and have plenty of time, hopefully, to get all our equipment and supplies in time to complete the work next summer. So we are on schedule as of right now.
Paso?
Hi, sorry, I had to jump out for bedtime and I'm back now.
Hmm.
I apologize for this question. Most of you guys most likely remember, but I don't. What exactly is under phase one? Just for my knowledge and for people watching on YouTube, if they don't remember, it's easier if you could lay out what is in the phase. Thank you.
I don't remember off the top of my head what's in phase one. I can tell you that the biggest items were over at Bailey, and it was replacement of the unit ventilators and replacement of the air handling unit that feeds the auditorium. So that was probably between 3.5 and 4 million out of the $5 million cost. There was a lot of controls work at the middle school and the high school where we were trying, you had, because of COVID, you had wedged open the fresh air intakes on your units, on a lot of your outdoor air units in order to get some fresh air in, but the controls are not working properly. So that's a big component of it as well. So there were several other things, and I think Jim had mentioned before, we'll try and get that list to you at the next meeting.
I remember there being control issues at Lee F. Jackson as well. You
Yeah.
had a series of vents that, of intake vents that supposedly work automatically, but in point of fact, if the temperature varies very much, you have to go up and move them by hand, and it's difficult. And if you're out there with a ladder trying to open and close your vents, it's difficult. I remember that Highview has a section of its roof that I believe is included in phase one. You said the worst section of the Highview roof and needed to be taken care of. Do other people have other recollections before we go pull up the list? Chris, do you have something?
Not a specific recollection. No, it's about what I would like to see the next time we meet.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If I can just step in, that's perfectly fine. It's good, give me a good summary.
We'll get you the list.
All right, thank you.
Phase one list. Okay.
So sorry. So
Sorry,
if-
I was gonna say it was Faisal. I don't know if you've been getting David's, like if you were getting them back in March, April, May, whatever. In the documents you shared, there is a list of phase one.
Yes. So if I dig back through enough of those, I will find it, but it'll take me 10 minutes and
No need. There's no need.
Yeah.
I'll look it up. Let's continue with the meeting. I know we're way over time, but thank you.
Okay. Chris.
So going back to, this might help Faisal, this might help everybody. And what I'd like to see at the next meeting and what Ms. Raymond and the architects sound like they're going to do is meet together to get us that information. I've referred myself to the spreadsheets given on February 22nd, which did identify in a color-coded way specific, listed all the BCS, listed all the priorities, and then out of the priority one items, it color-coded what could be phase one, what could phase 1A, what could be phase 1B. And I would like to see that spreadsheet put into one spreadsheet with multiple tabs instead of multiple spreadsheets. And I would like to see that information combined with the information we're looking at here, David, on the spreadsheet in front of us. I think that would be a useful tool.
And then we wouldn't have to go pull up the separate list of phase one. It would be in this spreadsheet.
It have
Good
all
idea.
the items, the priorities, and the prices all in one place. And that's my ask. If anyone has questions about what I'm asking, I'm happy to clarify. But I think that would illuminate a lot of us as to where we are and where we're going. Thank you.
Other
Yeah,
comments?
there was a document that we published dated March 5th, 2021, which took your list, that colorized list, and summarized only the projects that would be considered in phase one. It wasn't, a spreadsheet. It was just a line by line, building by building, cost by project.
Do you have it in front of you?
Simplified version.
Do you have it in front of you? Can you just read off the items?
So yes, so at Highview Elementary School, you mentioned the roof getting replaced. It was, I think we estimated roughly 15,000 square feet. Then we were doing some work inside that building where we were removing some glass panels from the walls that are by the gymnasium and the upper floor of the gymnasium. They're not allowed to be glass panels. They need to be fire rated. So we're going to replace those with a fire rated panel or wall surface. The elevator that's there, we had in our recommendation of the BCS to replace that elevator, make it handicap accessible. We only allocated, we were told to allocate only $40,000 to get it functional for the time being until more money can be appropriated for that. So that's more of a repair and not a replacement. The gym air handling unit needed to be restored to proper replaced to provide the proper ventilation for that space. Lee F. Jackson, as Fred mentioned, DDC controls was a big part of that. Reopen the fresh air intakes. Some exhaust fan control, so things can be set on day-night controls. Some emergency lights to be installed in the kitchen and the boiler room. RJ Bailey, this is the biggest one of projects mechanically anyway, providing unit ventilators throughout the classroom spaces. About 30 locations would be necessary. So that's one of the largest projects of the bunch. Replacing the auditorium heating and ventilation unit to provide the proper ventilation in that space. Reopen and restore the building exhaust system, again for proper ventilation. Some additional emergency lights that needed to be installed at exit ways from the steam area and the cafeteria. Boiler room needed some rewiring to recircuit an emergency light. And there was a few doors that were identified that needed to be enlarged to provide handicap accessibility to some offices and I guess specific toilet rooms. At Woodlands, in that main entry lobby atrium kind of space by the gardens area in the library, there's sliding glass windows that need to be made fixed windows. They can't be opening into a common pathway that's supposed to be a fire rated exit way. We had to replace, identify and replace doors in specific locations, common like at the stairwells and corridors, things that are getting high use and high traffic. Fresh air, extend some fresh air ductwork into rooms that have been subdivided that were once one big classroom where one unit ventilator provided fresh air. Now it got subdivided into smaller rooms. So we had to go back out there and identify what room wasn't getting the fresh air and how we're going to get fresh air to it. Some small work regarding emergency lights once again, and rehanging I guess a fire alarm strobe unit. The ECP work that will be done there outside what was done this past summer was providing mechanical exhaust fans in all bathroom areas, mechanical ventilation for all, I guess, classroom spaces, about 10 rooms in there. So that again would be either unit ventilators or some other means of getting fresh air into those rooms. Providing an exit light at the main entrance and at one other location, rebuilding 2 toilet rooms for ADA compliance. That was the extent there. And at the district admin, as I mentioned, there was some work at the mansion to repair some faucets and sinks at the pre-K toilet, but that room has been gutted, so that work won't be necessary. There was a hot water issue with the mixing valves at that toilet room. Again, the toilet room doesn't exist, so that won't be necessary. And the last item there that would have been considered was providing lenses or sleeves over existing T12 fluorescent light fixtures. Because right now I think they're set in such a way that they just need to be protected.
Okay, that's phase one. Any comments or questions? Thank you.
So
Moving on
those
to
items that we identify, we can work in with Lisa, put them into into one of the tabs by building, and then you'll see the line items with their associated cost that was pulled from the BCS.
That will work. Good. High school vestibule.
So we got our, yes, we submitted to the state. We got comments back. One of the comments that we received was when we complete our building condition, existing evaluation of building, we have to identify certain things throughout the building as either compliant or non-compliant. One of the things that we identified in the report or in the form was that the emergency windows, we gave a specific size as to how they measured, and noted that they're windows that existed in the building since the 70s, and we weren't doing anything different to the building at this time. So if they were pre-existing, non-conforming emergency windows. But they came back with a comment stating that we needed a letter from the district stating that when these windows will be fixed to be compliant. I did send something to Mike and Lisa this evening that was a letter that said, just copy this into your letterhead so we can let the district, let the SCD know that in an upcoming bond or capital project, these windows will be considered for replacement. They just need that so that they'll have something on file so that they can approve this project. And then I think we had mentioned this in the planning phases of a bond discussion, that there are certain things that the SCD will flag on us and make us address before they allow us to do other things. This just happens to be one that they're very, sticklers on. So we're going to, hopefully get that letter, address what other comments that were received. There wasn't a lot, only 2 or 3 items that we will take care of and get that project approved so we can go out to bid.
So the last comment says plans and specs to be submitted 6/22/21. That has passed. So I assume this needs to be updated a little bit. So are we going to shoehorn this extra window expense into phase 1, or are we looking at phase 2?
It won't have to be in phase 1. The price tag we had in the BCS for that was $9 million. So that's not going to really shoehorn anywhere very well.
Nope. Nope. Okay.
So it's going to have to be something that we need to discuss. I didn't give it a specific timeline or date. I said it's in the future planning and definitely being considered, and it will show up on a list and a priority item, priority 1 item, knowing that it has to be done. So it is a big ticket item that we'll need to have further discussions on, but is nothing that has to be considered immediately. I would point out that after we do go after some more work at the high school, like a roof replacement or something in the next phase, that this question will come up again. So it's just a matter of how we handle it.
Okay. Other questions or comments? We've already talked about the energy performance contract. So we'll move on from that, although there's some data that needs to be added to this tab, certainly. Dave?
Just for my own clarification, the energy service contracts, those exist outside of the issue with funding and capital projects fund and everything, correct? Because would that still be able to move forward regardless of where the money is supposed to be coming from?
Yeah, that's not funded by the district. That's paid for outside by the the bidding process that Fred described earlier, where the proposals come in. That's all work that doesn't require taxpayer approval.
So the way the energy performance contract works is that it actually pays for itself over time out of the energy savings that are achieved. So there is no upfront cost to the taxpayers, and there is no cost to the taxpayer.
And your cost for the design and spec and vetting and everything else?
That's all carried in with the energy conservation measures. So there's no cost for the district for that either. We actually get paid by the energy service company through the contract.
Great.
All good. Mansion roof. I think we can incorporate that into our discussion of the mansion as a whole, which is on the agenda after we get through all these tabs. Playgrounds. All
Sure.
complete? Okay.
In fact, RJ Bailey, they waited, material was backed up. As you know, all materials, refrigerators, freezers, all heating material was all backed up. Their slide, they couldn't put the slide up because a couple of parts for the slide did not arrive. But they finally arrived, they put the slide up, and now they have a full working playground at RJ Bailey.
Done. And because of our agreement with the town, I assume that RJ Bailey is now considered to be officially able to be used as a playground if school is not in session. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Curbside we already talked about. High school summer these are the tabs for the end of year funds cleanup projects. Go ahead, Mike. The high school first one.
The whole auditorium floors are done at, well, it says painting underneath the seats. We also carpeted the aisles. So the auditorium carpeting is done. The auditorium floor that's painted is done. Gymnasium floor has not been done. That's the one that I was showing you that, we have rot underneath that floor there. Life skills classroom, I think PPS wanted to upgrade certain things that are in there, and she was looking to see if the grants could be used to upgrade. I'm not sure what they want to do.
All right, so that's as listed. Questions, comments? RJ Bailey.
RJ Bailey, 06, 08, they're completed. Okay, 112 is completed. Gym floor needs to be addressed. What is not on here is I started the project last year. We replaced the cafeteria doors. Cafeteria doors, they were old, they were hard to shut, they wouldn't lock. They were all glass. So we ended up going to compliance, a fire code. So we did replace 2 sets of double doors at Bailey School cafeteria. That's completed. That's just not mentioned on here. But everything else is completed besides the gym.
Okay. And we saw that on the tour. Leah Jackson.
Leah Jackson. I have the PO for the resurfacing of the floor after we abate it. When we finally made the purchase order, it's too close to opening of school. I'm trying to work with the principal at LF Jackson. We work extremely well together. They need a total of 7 to 10 days just to abate. And then they need, then the floor contractor needs about 7 days to put down. I need at least a minimum of 2 weeks, 14 days to get this project completed. So trying to fit that in, how we might just have to hold off until
holiday break.
I don't think you're gonna have enough time to do that. You might have enough time to do an abatement. Then you might have to wait until another holiday break in order to put the floors down. That was a suggestion we thought about, but you're going to have cement floors that might be discolored or tar on it. That's up, and I think appearance-wise, we decided to stay away from that.
So that sounds like that's a summer project?
Probably going to end up the very, very beginning of the summer, because don't forget we have camp in that school. So once again, once the principal and I start talking, especially when we get close to the springtime, I'm going to have to start talking to the rec department as well.
So safety wise, we're okay.
Yes, we're fine.
You put enough sealant on to make sure everything is okay. All right. All right, fair enough. Tennis courts.
Tennis courts, I reached out to a contractor to come on over. They've been very, very busy. I have to follow up with them. I have no estimates on those except for estimates that we had 9 years ago.
Okay, so that's TBD. Bus garage boiler.
Bus garage boiler, they should have been completed by either today. I wasn't in today, but I will check tomorrow. But the boilers were in place. Expansion tank was in. Piping, the pumps were done. Piping was just about completed. So we're very close to being completed on the bus garage.
Okay. High school wheelchair ramp. I think the question was, do we need to do this since we already have an entrance? And the question was, we were talking about wanting to have, once that vestibule is in there, only one entrance at that end of the building for people to actively get into that was a non-emergency entrance. And that doesn't work, having that side hallway that's if you're letting people in from there. So I don't know how you make that determination. I don't know if the state comes and says you must do it this way. Do we have latitude?
That being an ADA issue, it is pretty certain that there is not much wiggle room the way the building is configured and the way you're trying to direct student traffic and visitors and such. I guess, kind of existed the way it has since, the building was kind of designed that way, but eventually it will become an issue, and it could become a legal issue if anybody were to come to that building and want to have, in a wheelchair and complain that they had to be directed around the side of the building for whatever reason to get in, an alternative exit that wasn't part of the main entrance to the building.
Okay. Comments, questions? Orton House.
I have a question on that one. It's been a while. I don't remember what that design looked like. Maybe for a future meeting, if we can have a refresher on that. Just curious if there's any other place to accommodate that, maybe a different angle or something like that. But again, I don't remember off the top of my head what that looked like.
We really didn't have a design or anything prepared. I think that we were asked at one meeting to come up with a rough estimate. So we just kind of sketched together lengths of what would be needed and quantities and came up with some idea of cost, but we never really had anything designed since the board didn't really, or the district didn't give us any direction to proceed with that. It was just an estimate at the time. So we haven't done any further research. We would need to get some survey done out there to, establish actual grades, but we could do, a rough preliminary design to show you where it would go.
I believe the principal chose a design, one of the designs that you sent out to him. I'm not sure if it ever got to you, but yes, I believe the principal decided the layout of the vestibule.
Well, the vestibule was approved. This is the handicap ramp to get down to that front entrance.
I guess I thought they were linked together. I got you. Okay.
Carol?
Would it be more cost effective to put in a lift instead of putting in a ramp?
I don't know that that would serve the purpose for emergency egress, because you'd have to be using a mechanical means to achieve change in grade. And if there were a power failure or if that mechanism didn't work, there'd be no other way to get out of that area in a wheelchair.
We initially started talking about people entering the building, and now you've brought up the question of people exiting the building. Would we not still have the side door that people could use for an egress?
As an emergency exit.
Yes.
So if that emergency egress is still there, we could go back and look at if it would be cost effective to put in a lift for the entrance purposes.
Perhaps.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And we have, and the Morton House, I believe we have some progress on that. Michael.
Yeah, about 2 days ago, they did bring the equipment there. They started removing the fence around it. Yesterday, actually maybe it was 2 days ago, they started tearing down the porch area. Yesterday, they did probably, I would say 3/4 of it, knocked it down. As I said, I wasn't there today. I probably, if they were there today, they probably would have removed basically the house, and then now the foundation is left. And then they're gonna have to backfill the foundation. So I can give you the progress tomorrow, but as of yesterday, more than 3/4 of the house was down. And actually, when I spoke to him, you were there right before me.
Yes, yes, I was there. And if I could get my screen share to work properly, I'd show you some photographs. I'm having trouble right now.
I saw your photographs, and they continue doing more than what you the last photograph that you have there. So everything was basically down except for the very last little porch that's in the back.
All right, let's see, Caretaker Demolition. Anybody see that? So Gentile Construction, when I was there yesterday, they had taken down about half of it. Once Con Ed finally disconnected the box, the meter, then I guess the water department followed suit very quickly in taking care of their part, and then they could go to work. And let's see if I can. Yeah, there's a different angle. Okay, this is what it looks like from the back. You can see that they were most of the way through. So by today, we're expecting this to be pretty much gone.
I was hope so. Like I
Okay.
said, I wasn't in today, so therefore, I will find out tomorrow.
Okay, so that was a long time coming.
When I left yesterday, the only thing that was left, this whole top part was the whole top part was down. Only this little deck in the back and this wall was left. The wall that you see right here is left. Everything else was down. I'm moving my mouse and you can't see my mouse.
That's true. Okay, let's see. The only picture I didn't show was this. Okay, so we've got an idea. Good. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so then that brings us to, I believe, Chris, you already made your, Faisal?
Hi, if we're done with this section, we're going to the mansion. Is that what we're gonna do right now?
That's what I was about to do.
Perfect. I just want to thank Mr. Falcone and for everybody who actually worked over the summer during the pandemic and with everything that's been done. These projects are done on time, they're done well. As a parent, my son started Leah Jackson in September. So thank you very, very much to you, your team, the contractors, everybody who did the hard work. It's not an easy community or an easy place to work. I understand that it's a lot of work. So from my end, from my wife's end, thank you very much, Mr. Falcone, and to everybody on your team.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. So on to the mansion. And I'm going to really quickly, it's been a long evacuation. So I'm going to really quickly run through what appears to have happened from the point that the mansion formerly held our central office administration, including the superintendent, and it had 3-year-old kids in half-day ECP courses at one end of the building, and so it went for many decades. I think the oldest people I've talked to, they used to be in kindergarten, but it had been early childhood program for many years, and then here are the events that happened from the point at which we started to have our disaster. So as of the end of June in 2019, it so happened that there were requirements for our federal funding that either had not been properly enforced or had been modified slightly. I'm not sure which. And it turned out that we were not able to fund our 3-year-old half-day program. There was a certain minimum number of hours that were totaled out to more than half a day in order to use the funding. So we always had a long waiting list of 4-year-olds. So we ended up discontinuing our 3-year-old program and going to all 4-year-olds, and we were able to accommodate almost all the 4-year-olds in the district that way. But at the same time that happened, 8/27/19, CS Arch submitted a report on mansion roof leak and plaster ceiling hazard at the mansion. And basically the slate roof leaked enough such that they were concerned that above some of the drop ceilings and in places where there weren't drop ceilings, there was plaster that was soaking in water, and it could break and fall through. It actually did in I think a corner office and fall through onto whatever was beneath it. It was an empty office. No one happened to be there, but their desk got plastered by plaster. So at that point, we were counseled to evacuate the mansion. That is to make sure that in the fall there would not be any kids there, and to get the adults out as well. 8/28 board special meeting at which the board tours the mansion, reviews the CS Arch, that was our architecture firm at the time, report, and comes to a consensus to evacuate the administrative staff from the mansion. 9/3, all ECP students were located to Lee F. Jackson for fall school opening. They moved classrooms around and did what they could. Central Office Administration began to evacuate Woodlands Middle High School over time. 9/16, CS Arch submitted a structural review of the mansion showing the structure was still sound. They were concerned whether the foundation was good, whether the walls were good. They turned out to be okay. CS Arch, okay, then by 12/13 and well before it, I think a month or two before it, Falcone and his and crew reconfigured parts of the high school and had moved everyone, all of the central office staff to the high school. The superintendent took over the principal's office. The principal ended up, I think we ran a tour and halted. There was going to be some additional construction of an office complex for the principal's staff in place of an art room, but we said, no, we're going to come back and we're going to fix the mansion, move everybody back. So why should we spend the money up front? We then moved the principal, I think, to an area in the back of the library, and stopped what we were doing at that point as a result of a tour that we had in December. Then January, the board approved a contract with BBS Architects and Engineers. We were transitioning from the architecture firm to a more nuts and bolts friendly, and that's you guys, firm. Yes, and the COVID-19 state of emergency was then declared in March. In April, the board discussed a $10 million recommendation for doing soup to nuts, everything to repair in the mansion. In May, we said no, but we'll replace the roof. $1.58 million of roof repair replacement. And the funding sources at the time were $1.3 million from a capital projects fund, not separate from the general fund, but that was a subcategory within the general fund, and $441,000 with repair reserve that later got swapped around, and that apparently turned out not to be doable. Also in May, BBS filed a letter of intent with NYSED and the offices of facilities planning. Then in July, the administration proposed $2.5 million worth of repair work for ventilation fixes throughout the district related to COVID. We gave them $750,000 instead, offering more if needed. In August, the EnviroScience completed a indoor air quality testing of the mansion and recommended once they get the roof on, mold remediation, removing fuels and solvents from the basement, which we did, installing an HVAC air handling system. And that's in section 7 of the report, and it's on the district website under facilities. And that's mechanical ventilation, which is listed for $2.2 million in the building condition survey. Then in October, BBS submitted plans to the Office of Facilities Planning and then by April, they finally came back. Let's see, the budget presentation included information on how we were going to fund things. The board conducted its repair reserve public hearing in April, and 421, there it is, NYSED Office of Facilities Planning finally approved the mansion roof project. So we've got NYSED approval for the thing. And of course, they don't do that unless they think you have your money in place. Then in June, the Finance and Facilities Committee recommended a special election with propositions to create the capital reserve fund and populate it and do it all at once. And in September, we came back and said we did some more research and we'll create the capital reserve fund now and do the rest of the process a little bit later. So that's everything soup to nuts that I know about in terms of the history of the mansion from the time we evacuated it. Faisal, you wanted to make a comment?
Sorry, my hand is up from before, but when you're done with your presentation, I have a question, but whenever you're done.
Okay, so the next stage after that, and I know it's getting late, was what would it take to reoccupy the mansion at this point, to put everything back together? And we called upon BBS, and I think within the last couple of days, Mike took them in and they toured the mansion, since a number of things obviously happened since the initial evacuation. And I'd like them to come back and tell me what they found and what it would cost to put things back together.
Okay, so yeah, me and Mike did a tour of the building earlier this week. We just walked the building, pretty much the same way that we did when we did the BCS, and after we were brought in to look at the roof and do some in-depth work with that. And discussed anything that had taken place or changed since that time. Basically nothing has changed other than everything being removed from the building regarding the solvents and chemicals and that sort of thing, and repairs to some water pipes that had broken or heating pipes that were broken. We saw the damage that was caused in the pool area where those the ECP classrooms were, and how that was all gutted and renovated, or just pretty much gutted from the damage. And then just kind of went about to see if anything that we would recommend differently needing to be done if people would have moved back in the building. So our list all along has been, top priority is replacing the roof to get that building watertight. Right now, there's still areas that continue to leak. In addition to the roof, we had masonry work to be done on the exterior of the building, repointing, brick replacement that's cracked, things that are loose or falling out needs to be removed and reconstructed. There were some more areas within the building where plaster has shown evidence of water damage and is continuing to crumble, or areas that hadn't crumbled previously are starting to show effects of water damage, whether it be the plaster is cracking, peeling, bulging. All those kind of things are evidence of water either coming in from exterior walls or from above through a roof. Nothing was completely down or collapsed, but you did see flakings and you did see crumblings of plaster on the ground in a lot of areas. Part of our discussions in moving anybody back into that building was always the consideration for needing to provide an additional second means of egress by creating a small secondary corridor that would lead you out the side of the building over by that plaza to the steps that go down to the grass. We needed to cut a corridor through what was an office at one time. Especially now, if that end of the building is going to be cut off and sealed because of the work that's ongoing in there, that would be creating a dead end corridor. So you would need to provide a second means of egress at that point. There were some floor openings that had been made to investigate the issues with the floors sagging in certain spaces. So there was a need for engineers to look and see what the condition of the framing was and what would need to be done. So some of those openings are still around. They would need to be closed up. And then there's in the basement area, the boiler room and some of the hallways leading to it. There's old plaster ceiling that is in very bad shape, and pieces kind of fall over time due to water or the changes in temperature in there, and then they're patched with sheetrock because that has to be maintained as a fire-rated ceiling. At this point, the patching with sheetrock is just too extensive, and it really should be completely replaced, and that is a fire barrier to the spaces above. So there's a pretty extensive amount of work just in doing that by itself. I mean, those are the priority considerations that would need to be done. And of course, if there's any air quality issues regarding mold, that those would need to be identified. We did see one small area in one room that seemed to show a sign, but it didn't smell musty or moldy. The dehumidifiers or air moving equipment has been kind of running in there to kind of keep the moist air out. So those things are like the most critical that would need to be done. There were other items that we looked at and had also identified in the BCS that are big considerations that, if possible, should be done. The fire alarm system needs to be revamped, reworked, modernized. There is portions of the building that has a new or a newer version of fire alarm systems that's connected to the original heat detection type fire alarm system. So that's kind of a hybrid that really should be revamped to be one type of system. There's existing galvanized water piping that Mike has experienced problems with, that when the building does become occupied again and they turns the water back on, that there could be leaks that would require that piping or additional valves being installed. But it is an old building and this piping is kind of running extensively throughout it. There is the building is heated by a hot water system. Again, these pipes carrying water to the radiators in various areas to provide heat. Again, turning that system on, which will become necessary as we approach the cold weather months.
Yep.
Since the system has been shut down for a period of time, there's no way of knowing what's going to happen once it gets fired up again. The window units throughout the building, if nothing is going to be done with a mechanical means of ventilation, the windows should be made functional so that windows can be opened to provide fresh air. A lot of the windows in that building are old wood windows that are either not able to open, or if they open, they can't be closed, and just really crumbling to a point where if you were to open a sash, it may fall apart. I don't know. I didn't really try many of them. And that will be considered the second tier of work that should be done. We've always had discussions, there's been discussions on both sides of the table regarding, mechanical systems and providing mechanical exhaust and fresh air. It is an old residence, so it doesn't have that. The SED has told us what it doesn't need to have that. It is pre-existing, non-conforming. They would not require it to be done. But there was discussions going back and forth. Well, we want to put people back in there. We want to make sure that they're, comfortable and no air quality issues. And, that would be a decision that would need to be made, not a mandate.
So that's already been discussed at the board level. And as far as I know, we were looking at about 1.6 million for the initial project in which the roof was replaced, and there were some underlying pieces that went with that. And then there was 2.2 million in the BCS for mechanical ventilation, which brought us to a total of about 3.8 million. And so I'm looking at that as the floor and going upward from there. What do you think it's going to cost to get us back into the building?
I haven't looked at any of these additional items to see if we haven't incorporated all these into that. We just had a chance to walk the building this week, so I haven't gone back to see what the overall cost would be. But as you mentioned, 3.8 being where we're starting, and to see if any of those conditions have increased from what we originally estimated over time to now, or if anything else we found that would, should be considered to be added. But that 3.8 is really just the top 6 items that I mentioned, and wouldn't consider the fire alarm or the galvanized piping or the window units. Those would be outside of that.
Does Mike have his hand up? Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know how to put that yellow hand on. So I'm just gonna butt in for a second.
Okay.
I really, Jim and I went over this at the mansion. And when you say occupied, are you meaning fully occupied? Are you telling me PPS, business, administrators, and ECP? Or are you saying to get one section in at a time? Because there's other sections that need more work than, there's some sections that need more work than others. So what, in your eyes, David, are you saying fully occupied?
I'm assuming that, well, okay, there's what David Warner wants, which is to restore what we had before. I do have one part of my motivation is that I think that there are people in the district who have 3-year-old children, and it would be good if we might not have as many classrooms. And I've spoken to the superintendent and said, no, we can't have as large a program as we had before. She was talking more about, 1 or 2 classrooms. And some people came back and said, well, we're not really ADA compliant by modern standards. And so if you had fewer classrooms in the area where we currently have 4 ECP classrooms, you could do that. But I want to get that 3-year-old program going again, if at all possible. So yes, I'm looking for both students and administrators to be in the building. And I'm assuming some money's coming in from the insurance company to at least counteract that flood.
Yes, just for the classrooms.
Correct.
Okay, that's where I was saying, to give, Jim a better idea that you want to know how much it is to get everyone back in.
Yes. Faisal, do you have a question?
I have a question and a comment, and I know we're going over the budget for the mansion, and I just wanted to flag the discussion that I and other community members had by email regarding the deed of the mansion itself. So I know there's a lot of money, and I know that this is a sensitive topic because the mansion represents a certain aspect of the community and the community wants to maintain it. I personally, and I think there's some community members who feel that $3.8 million to partially fix a building that might not be completely fixed is a lot of money, when other buildings that actually need the money could be where the money could be used. So I'm not going to jump into the discussion of the whole budget and everything right now. I just wanted to know, have you followed up with the lawyers for the Board of Education to see if we have a duty of care when it comes to the mansion itself. Was from the way I read the deed is that once the school district was established, the mansion and anything that comes with the school district was ours to fix, maintain, or release, sell, etc. Right? Then the second question I have is, have you looked at sources from what is the phrase? Historical preservation societies to help fund the fix up of the mansion itself? I know this is budget related, but I want to bring this up again because it's discussed, and there were some community members who did feel that we should look at alternatives for that money. Just feel that 3.8 million could be used for other school projects that we have. Thank you. Over.
All right, and at this point, I'd like to read to you. We did forward a number of questions to our legal counsel, and I did get a partial response. I'll read that back to you. And the question was about what can we do with the mansion if we were to do something else with it. That is, the deed seemed to indicate that once you turn something into a school, built a school there, and then as a result of that, you had students in there and it had served as an official school, then the restrictive covenants would be null and void for that piece of the property, not the entire Warburg campus, but only a portion of it. And
that was my understanding as well.
And then the response I got was, based on what we were provided to review, it appears that pursuant to the deed, once any portion of the property is designated as a site for a school and a school building is erected, the restrictive covenant affecting such designated part of the conveyed land ceases and expires. The language seems to imply, however, that if the entire property was not utilized for a school or one of the other enumerated purposes, such remaining parts of the property may still be subject to the restrictive covenants. A review of any plans filed with any NYSED and or a survey of the building sites might help clarify this issue. Now, what the heck does that mean? So in talking with the lawyer, the clarification I got was, okay, let's say for the sake of the example that the mansion has been a school for a number of years because we had ECP children in it for decades and the restrictive covenants were gone. But it's surrounded by other school sites, and your uses will be limited by the restrictive covenants of the adjoining surrounding property that are still bound. So the fact that you're right up against the high school, the fact that you're close to ECP, all of that will, and any of the Warburg property that hasn't had a school on it, all of that will tend to restrict what you are allowed to do with it. So I think in the conversation, I gave the idea of, okay, let's have the mansion dinner theater, right? So we'll have our arts program come in since, historically, the mansion was the place where the American Ballet Theater came from. And you could bring in the drama program to put on a play. You could bring our BOCES students in to cook dinner and have a thriving business, right? Sitting there and do pretty much anything you wanted with this thing, but maybe not. And more study has to be done. You would have to pull the information on when you applied to NYSED for a particular parcel to be designated part of a school. How big was that? How close are they together? Give us more data, work with the architects and figure out what can and cannot be done. The further advice I got from legal was go see if it's too expensive to put the mansion back together. And if it turns out to be totally impractical, then come back and give us a small number of options, not a large number of options, and we'll look at it and see whether it's legal at that point. So that's the input that I got.
Thank you, David. That's very helpful. It helps explain certain aspects. I just had one follow-up question, if you could ask the lawyers. The second part of their reasoning, saying that certain portions of the deed indicate that the covenants may still apply because the school district, the building surrounded by the school district. Could you ask them where they read that? I can't recall. I'll look at the deed again hopefully tomorrow. I won't do it tonight. But if you just ask them where specifically they read that so that everybody in their group and the community is on the same page, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Surely. Where in deed does it indicate covenants may still apply to district? Okay,
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
thank you. Let's see other comments. Ashley, you've been waiting a long time. Go ahead.
So the only thing I'm going to say on this is I'm still in a place where I'm not ready to make a decision either way. I know we're not doing that tonight, but I haven't been convinced of what we are going to do with this building in the future that would warrant us taking that funding and restoring the building, because we know it's going to be more than 3.8 million when we're all said and done. And that's money that I think could be reallocated to the other buildings. So that's where I stand on that. I know we still have to have conversations about that as we get more information. I still haven't gotten a good answer as to what our purpose for that building would be that would justify that. So that's where I stand. And then David, it looks like Ms. Lazari and Mr. Simon both have their hands up as well.
All right, Sarah?
Hi, thank you. So thank you, Ashley, for that comment. I think I agree, but I just wanted to sort of discuss. Megan in the chat wrote, if you have to put someone back in there, put the admin and not children. And I just want to reiterate that. I toured the mansion when my daughter was coming up for ECP, and she was the first full day class. So they ended up, closing the mansion. And I was not impressed, to say the least, with the space. I agree that I don't think it's a good space for children. It would have to be completely redone. And if we're completely redoing everything, it's probably more cost effective and better for the children if they are, in a space where they already are, such as LFJ. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I do not at all think that putting children back in the mansion is a good idea.
Would you care to elaborate on why a little bit more? So
well,
say it's been gutted and you could redo the innards. Would it still not be a good place? Because it is. You're looking at Joyce over a swimming pool right now, right? So the insurance company money has to come in, and then you have to redo it, and you may have fewer classrooms and more space, and you could make the inside much nicer. The question is, would that do it?
I mean, for me, I think putting the 4-year-old, the ECP back there doesn't make sense. We want the ECP to be ideally in one spot, or at the very worst in 2 spots, and that makes it 3 spots. And as far as offering a 3-year-old program, I don't know, maybe, but if we're going to spend the money to do that, I would rather put the money into the schools that we already have.
Okay, so it's about keeping things in a smaller number of spots, as opposed to the insides of the building, depending upon costs of redesign. Okay, Mr. Simon?
Yes, seeing how there's so many different ideas of what should be the final designation of that building, whether or not we'll be violating the covenants, or whether or not we should split up the ECP program in several different spots. I think I would recommend that the best thing to do now is to stabilize the building, make sure that water is not leaking into the building and doing any further damage, and stabilize the building. And then we'll have time to really think about what are the best long-term plans for the building. And that's what I think, because we really don't have unanimity of what we should do with that building. But in the interim, the building should not deteriorate any further. So my recommendation is to stabilize the building and then work out what you're going to do with it.
Okay, so fix the roof. That's a must. You know,
Okay.
you fix the roof and the statement, then you can figure out what to do with the building. The other point is that you talk about insurance money that will pay for some of the damage. Are we pursuing FEMA money for the flood damage on not only in this building, for all the sites within the district? Are we pursuing?
Not going to fund us. We had damages underneath FEMA for the storms.
I'm sorry, I guess I had my volume too low. Could you repeat that, please?
We had no damages due to the storms. It was not involved.
Oh, okay, no flooding, anything like that?
No, we had water in our buildings, no damages, minimal water versus any other place around. I believe our worst spot was ECP. Water came in, but it didn't do any damage to any walls or any equipment.
Okay. And what about the other buildings?
The other buildings, we had water, like heavy rains. We just had water coming in various places.
But there's no permanent damage?
No permanent damages.
Okay.
Okay. Carol?
As we discuss what to do with the mansion, we must keep in mind that we have to look at enrollment figures. We were concerned that those numbers might have been going up this year because of the effect of the pandemic and children who would no longer be enrolled in private schools. So we have to keep the total student enrollment in mind when we talk about changing the amount of square feet available for the classrooms.
Okay. Fair enough. And the big deal for me is to have that number that to reoccupy, and I had hoped that there would be a number, but can we have a number a month from now? Jim?
Yeah, we will pull together a number for that. Yes.
Okay. Wait, Dave, did you raise your hand again?
That was a quick thing. What number, and Megan has it in the comment, what number makes it unfeasible? If it's 5 million, does it mean we don't do it?
I get leery if I go much above 5 million because I feel like if I go for a bond that I want to be proportional, and there are other facilities that I want to. There are other things I want to do for other facilities, and so 5 times 6 is 30. That 30 million is a little too rich for our blood, I think, in terms of a bond that could actually pass. So that's where things start to get dicey for me, is at about that 5 million mark, but I don't know what other people think.
But we're
Katie?
at 24 million now. 3.8 times 6.
Yes, but all the other, yes.
I have a question. So in December, we're having the vote on the proposition to create a capital reserve. So say that passes, then when's our next vote to move money from the reserve from the repair reserve into the capital reserve?
That would be at the budget vote.
Budget vote in May. And then there would be a third vote to say, okay, money's in the fund now. We want to put that money toward the roof of the mansion or to.
No, it could be, it could be done at the time of the budget vote, because you got to remember the money that is being moved from the repair reserve into the capital reserve is prior year's money.
Right.
It's kind of a timing difference. So we could say, let us create this reserve in December, and the taxpayers let us do that. In May, we say, here's our budget. That's one proposition. Second proposition could be any excess of the 4% we want to move into the capital reserve. But in the meantime, we would like to do X, Y, and Z from the capital reserve money. Or you could wait. It's all the timing difference.
Okay, so I asked because if we're saying, like, it sounded like there was some agreement with Walter, let's stabilize the building, and that means put a new roof on it.
Right.
We have until May to figure out whether we're gonna.
Okay,
fund
so
that.
if you watched a couple of the past budget meetings, Mike Falcone has said, even if we could replace the roof, by the time we do that, we get it through the architects, we get it through SED.
We
The
did that already.
earliest is gonna be the summer.
We did that already. We already have approval from NYSED.
Right, I know.
Right.
I'm saying for the vote, right, because the community has to buy into this. And if
Right,
there's
so
debate-
by the,
if there's
by the
any
time
such
we would do
debate,
that,
That's
right,
why I'm asking the timeline.
right,
So
so
we
the
know
buy,
what we're dealing with and what we
right.
put on the agenda next month and give discussion. I recommend we start discussion about the mansion, maybe first or second thing on the agenda next meeting.
Yeah, we could. Mhm.
Chris,
Okay, so you've asked for the number next month on how much to reoccupy.
Mhm.
We also get a second number, how much to stabilize, which would be probably that 2.2, the 1.6, and then the masonry number.
the
Just to make it
1.6 will put a roof on the
That's
mansion.
the roof, so that's, okay.
That's it.
So, but I consider, as a person who lives in a brick building, masonry to be part of making it watertight, which would add to the stability.
Mhm.
Maybe that's not true, but so that maybe two different numbers possibly is what I'm looking for.
We do have some work
Stabilization number and
included.
a reoccupation number.
Right, so explain to me one more time.
Mhm.
I understood that at one point we did not have enough money to simply go forward using money that we have available now without going through a multi-year capital reserve process. If New York State Education Department has already approved a project with $1.6 million, why we can't go forward with that project, given that new money has come in from other sources that will offset some of the phase one stuff, right? So what is it that is actually stopping us from going out right now and repairing just the roof?
I see
Well, I can tell you, it's because we went to the taxpayers and said, we want to ask you to transfer this money into the capital reserve, or not capital reserve, capital fund to do A, B, C, D, E. Okay, now we've done whatever, and we're gonna eliminate C and E. You can't do that. We've already told the taxpayers, here's what we're gonna do. We can't substitute that with something else.
So what are we using the money from the federal government for? Are we not substituting that money for the money that we were originally going to use?
I don't know that. In all honesty, David, I don't know that. We have to talk with BBS and say, hey, the coronavirus, the CRISA funds, we have been approved for 903,000. We're spending 400,000 on this. 575,000 is from the building condition survey for ECP to finish the ventilation. I'm asking.
Did we not set aside money for that same $575,000 from existing money before the money came in from CRISA and ARP?
I don't know. I have to ask BBS, but I've asked the federal government of our allotment 575,000. I want to designate to finish the ventilation at ECP. Whether it costs that or not, or is less, that'll leave that much more that we'll be able to apportion to something else.
Correct. And that something else may include this thing that we've already approved.
Correct. But we
Okay.
don't know that yet.
Okay, so we stay tuned. We may be able to move forward on this much more quickly All right, that's my 2 bits. Did Katie want to talk? Katie McGee?
No, that was from before.
Okay. Who's up next? Faisal?
Hi, so very quick. I know this has become a long meeting. It seems things are all very long. I think nobody's going, if you have the budget money approved and it has been approved by the government, the state government, I don't think anybody's saying we shouldn't fix the roof. I think the main concern is not the short-term projects, but it's the long-term discussion regarding the mansion. And that's why I keep suggesting we look for money outside the school budget. If you want to fix the mansion, if that's what the community wants, that's what the community should do. But if we're looking at, I'm assuming, considering everything that Jim and others have said, you're looking at 20, 25, $30 million over a long-term period, right? That means multiple bonds or multiple projects or multiple property increases. It's a more practical way with multiple buildings we're looking at to look at maybe potentially funding outside for the 22-23 budget. The idea is that the discussion for the mansion should be a long-term discussion for the whole building, and whatever is approved is approved. I understand that, but we should look at alternative sources of funding other than a bond or increasing taxes for the mansion if other buildings need just as much work. And I'm going to stop there and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? So at this point, we were going to have a discussion of the various options, but we don't know how much the fix it up option costs, and we really need that in order to move forward. At this point, does anyone want to make any suggestions as to possible alternative uses for the mansion, or should we end the meeting now and reconvene a month from now? I think Fossil came first. Okay.
Sorry, that's an old hand. Ignore that.
Okay. Walter?
You know, I go back to what I said before, regardless of what decision we make on the mansion, we have to repair the roof. Whether or not we bring the other programs back to it or not, that's another discussion. But in the meantime, we should stabilize the building. And the question I have is, what does it take for us to get the $1.2 million, whatever the cost? How do we get the funds to do that? You know, and I think that should be the focus. Repair the roof and where we get the funds. Is it legal? Can we legally shift we have the money. The question is in the wrong pocket. Can we shift the money from one pocket to the other pocket and repair the roof? Once the building is stabilized, like I said, we can decide what we want to do. So the main question is, can we legally shift the money to repair the roof?
Correct. Chris, you good? All right. So I'm not hearing people piping up with alternative suggestions for the mansion. I think we know what we need to do in the short term. I'll convene a meeting in another month. And is there any other facilities concerns anyone wishes to raise before we adjourn? Yes, Ashley.
Thank you. So I was just going to say, since no one has any suggestions now, maybe between now and the next meeting, folks can think about potential uses for the mansion, and we can have that discussion at the next meeting. I myself have found challenges coming up with a good use for it, and that's why I'm hesitant to go into a full project on there. The second thing I wanted to say was, I'm going back to what Trustee Valen was asking, which was defining exactly what do we agree on as a committee as envelope. In my mind, it's the roof is really the priority number one. everything else should fall off the list if we're talking about just stabilizing the building. That's my personal opinion. I don't see us going beyond that without funding sources, without turning it into another fiasco.
Right.
Okay. Katie?
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Panetta, and I mean, I guess the stabilizing the building makes sense. So if we're clear on exactly how much that would cost and what our definition of stabilized is next month, that would be helpful. You're asking about different uses for the mansion, but I think it would be helpful to say, would one option for the board, for our committee, just to consider not using the mansion, say it's stabilized though, but down the road, and we find a different place for ECP and for the admin, like have another option so that we have shown that we considered various options. That's one thing I want to say. The other thing is, Lisa, at one of the most recent board meetings, you brought up something, about something where the state, was it just about the way to the voting on the propositions, or was it something else about, it had some, I meant to look at it again before this meeting, but I ran out of time. It was about the state overseeing projects and money, and there could be like some kind of breaks they would put on this. Do you know what I'm talking about, Lisa?
Not off the top of my head, but I'd have to look into it.
All right, I'll look back at the meeting and I'll get in touch with you. I'll bring it up.
All right.
It occurs to
got
me you
it.
might be talking about the idea that they frowned upon moving money into this new reserve fund and then spending it immediately as opposed to over the course of multiple years. That is, I
Correct.
think, the piece that came out and changed our original recommendation after they'd done further research.
Right, so with the capital reserve, it is designated as like a savings account. You cannot create, contribute, and expend from a capital reserve all in the same year. It is frowned upon by the comptroller and the governor.
Jessica,
Okay, thanks. I thought it was something though about why you were having BBS go back into the mansion to look at what had happened since, and I thought it was something else. I'm gonna have to look back, but thank you for that.
Okay, just let me know.
Jessica.
Hi, I think it would be helpful to have this be a place to have input from principals. And I feel often we're having these conversations, but we need the administration. And by that, I mean the building principals often to be involved with this. What is it that they would look for other spaces to have on the campus or within the district that they would want to have that we could think of as a community, as adults, what we might want, but what is it that for kids, would it be a gallery space and a musical space, a STEAM space, like to kind of get some of their brainstorming also, I think would be helpful for me. And I think helpful to kind of like push our thinking is to have them in this as thought partners and not necessarily to come in a late meeting, but to even just kind of throw us some ideas of like, if I had a wish list, this is the type of space I wish my kids would have. So that's my only input for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Carol.
Could we appeal to the State Department of Education, the comptroller and the governor to issue a written waiver? Because the taxpayers of this district have already said we want to spend the 1.3 million on the mansion roof, but we erred in how we worded the question and where we placed the money.
Lisa.
We could try, Miss Allen. I don't know that it would work. I certainly could petition them and ask them.
I think we really should do that. If the answer is no, the answer is no, but it wouldn't hurt to try.
Good. Jessica.
Sorry, let me take my hand down.
Okay. I think Chris.
Sorry, so I'm just going to recap some of the asks, maybe not all of them. So we want an idea of how much to reoccupy. We want an idea of how much to stabilize the mansion. I've asked for a consolidated spreadsheet that shows the BCS and the funding and the project status. So that, and not just what's actually live, but what all the phases. So that, because I think part of this committee's next step will be identifying the next phase, whether that would come out of reserve fund or a
Phase
bond.
two.
Whatever.
Yes.
So we need that data all in one place. I again offer myself. I'm available so that I can explain better what it is I'm looking for. Feel free to call me.
Okay.
And my next ask that I haven't mentioned yet is I think we need to go over again, and I apologize, but to recap, last year we had a lot of money moving from a capital project item line in the system to, I think it got moved twice. I think it ended up in the, I don't know where it ended up. Just to get a feel for where we are in our repair reserve, our capital fund, and our soon-to-be capital reserve.
So you want a diagram with columns and arrows and for Lisa to give you a narrative to go with it.
You know, like I'm looking at something here from March. I know that there were updates at budget time. I know we don't yet know how much was moved into it after we closed the books on 2021.
Then we'll know.
But I think we also need to look at where we were before that money got moved. So, because frankly, at this point, that roof money, and maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but that roof money has been talked about in various ways. And I honestly don't know where it is right now. The money we had set aside that the voters approved, I don't know if we unapproved it to put it into X fund. So we need to go over that again next meeting, please.
Okay. Gabriella.
Oh, sorry, I did unmute myself. I apologize for the question if it has been discussed in the past. It's the first time I'm joining the committee meetings. I guess two things come to mind. Is this the first time that something happens, a situation happens as such with regards to the roof and this technicality of not being able to use the money that was already voted on? And number two would be what controls could be put into place to avoid this happening again?
Lisa.
Well, we are doing exactly what we are trying to accomplish to correct all of these situations. So a repair reserve is set up exactly for that, repairs. Something that is just defined as a repair. So the work that has to be done on the mansion roof is not a repair, it's a replacement. That takes it out of the repair realm. So we are trying to create a a capital reserve to set up a function to do projects that are more extensive. I want to keep the repair reserve for repairs that are actual repairs in the district. And then we have the capital fund. So you have three different avenues. A capital fund, which any money that is spent, whether it be from a repair reserve, a capital reserve, an interfund transfer from the general fund to a capital fund that will help improve our facilities, has to go through the capital fund. If it is a repair, in the definition of a repair, it would go through the repair reserve. It could also go through the general fund. It's minor repairs. Operative word, repair. Capital reserve is for something that, like the mansion roof, has to be replaced. Okay, so there is multiple work that has to be done at the mansion. So a capital reserve encompasses more than just a piecemeal. I don't want to ask the taxpayers, let me spend $1.3 million to replace the mansion repair. But in the next year, let me spend $2 million to fix the floors, the ceilings, the mold repair, or the whatever else has to be done for people to move back into the mansion. Capital reserve is an all-encompassing thing. It's not a piecemeal work. So we're trying to get the district back in a target where we are able to function within these 3 lanes instead of trying to piecemeal things. I know it's complicated. I know, to me, it's simple. To the taxpayers, and I understand, but it's a 3-lane kind of system.
So you designate each, is it possible to designate each repair item or replacement item as such on a spreadsheet so that when you look at it in the future, you go, oh, it goes in this pile, not that other pile? I think that was one of the suggestions.
We could, David, we could
So
do
that-
that.
that will
I'd
stop
have to
there from
work
being
with
recurrent.
Jim. Right, I'd have to work with Jim and Fred to move it into each lane.
And the other thing I should mention is that we haven't had a repair reserve forever. We've had it for a few years, and we initially populated it with a total of $700,000. And we had very small projects coming out of it. And as a result of those of the size of those projects, we didn't run into this issue. Obviously, if you replace an entire roof, it's a little more expensive. So that's why I think this is the first time this has happened. And now we know what we can do, or this is an idea of what we can do to prevent it from happening again. There.
Correct.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you all for your persistence in staying through this marathon meeting. Have a good evening. Meeting adjourned. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
All right, everyone.